City of Stevens Point Finance Committee meeting, recorded September 9, 2019.
We'll call the Finance Committee to order at, well, I don't know, what do you call it, 6:37. Roll call has been taken. We'll move to the first item on the agenda, which is the presentation of 220 capital budget and capital improvements plan for 21 through 24. Corey, I guess you can take over.
Sure. So, and first of all, the mayor regrets that he can't be here tonight, but he did leave me with a memo on some of the items, so I will read excerpts of that as they're relevant. So just to dive right into it, it was another challenging capital year. We had a total of $11.3 million in requests for $5.8 million in capital. So we had to cut out almost half, not quite half, but almost half, as far as from what the requests were from the departments and what we were actually able to fund. The other thing that I would note is I think it's important that we do adjust that capital budget a little bit every year because costs do go up with inflation. So last year was $5.7 million. For this year, we'd be looking at increasing that to $5.85 million. I'll also read kind of the beginning of the mayor's memo. He says this year's capital budget was one of the most challenging I've had. We have made a commitment to maintain our capital assets, and the comptroller treasurer had inventoried all of them, calculated the expected life of each, and determined that we need to invest about $5.5 million each year to get us on a sustainable path for fleets, roads, and buildings. This year we began with $11 million in requests. I want to thank all our department heads and staff for helping us determine our biggest priorities and working together to share the tasks of proper planning to make sure we are using our resources in the most efficient ways possible. This may have meant reducing equipment, postponing planned projects, or finding ways to save costs and recoup funds on our assets. Okay. So also to kind of chart out the requests over the next 4 years and how that's looking. First of all, the purplish, bluish bars is what was initially requested, and then the green bar is how that capital budget was adjusted. And what you can see, as is typical, is some things are removed, some things are put off into future years. So typically what happens is, in order to get that initial year down, you're putting things off into future years, and you definitely see that. And then also this purplish line right here, this is our actual capital budget amount, and I did add an inflation adjustment of $150,000 a year. So you can see really over 21 to 23, over the next 4 years, it still is pretty challenging as far as just the number of requests and the money that we have to work with. So now I'll get into the specifics of the capital budget as far as the specific items. So for the citywide and IT category, we did previously budget $20,000 for a strategic plan. We found that that's probably woefully inadequate, and that we might actually need as much as $87,000. So that's why you've got the additional $67,500 in additional funds for a strategic plan. We've got $50,000 in citywide building maintenance. This is something that we budget every year, really for unexpected building maintenance needs that come up. We've got $25,000 for IT desk upgrades, and then $15,000 for printer replacements. On the IT desktop upgrades, the mayor did leave a note that we have 54 machines that run Windows 7, which is hitting its end of life in January of 2020. At least 16 of those machines need to be physically upgraded. We don't know about the rest yet, but should likely be able to do just a software upgrade. This doesn't include the fire department Windows 7 upgrades. Okay, so that's kind of the main city stuff, IT. The next one, airport. I know that they're in need of a replacement fuel truck, so we budgeted $60,000 for that. Budgeted $50,000 for a perimeter fence. This would actually be a federal project where we have federal dollars involved. The feds pay 95%, and we would pay 5%. So the $50,000 is actually just our 5% share, and then also $15,000 for runway design. Transit. So we've got $87,850 for new fixed route buses. And usually for this one, we approve it a year in advance, simply because with the grant process with the federal government, this is one where the federal government pays 80%. The local share is 20%, so actually that $87,850 is just our 20% portion for those bus replacements. So for this year, again, you know, we already have an amount that was approved last year for the 2020 budget. So again, we'd be looking at approving money for actually the 2021 budget, and that's just based on the very long approval process with the federal government, if that makes sense. Yes?
What's the county's portion on that?
So the county actually wouldn't be on here for a portion.
This one?
Yeah,
Okay.
because basically we still have sort of the county assets and that we still operate. So if it's a county capital asset, which basically would be the operations that were formerly under the Aging and Disability Resource Center that we operate sort of on behalf of the county, the county still handles all that on their side with that capital budgeting. So basically, they pay for their stuff, for their what used to be their operation, what we're doing for them, and then we pay for our stuff.
So this isn't associated with the aging grant, this would be a separate transportation grant?
Yes,
Okay,
yep.
thanks.
This would all be public transportation.
Thank you.
Yep. Okay, and then Department of Public Works, a couple of items, and first we'll start with the non, heavily streets-related requests. So we have $200,000 for signals at Stanley Street and Green Avenue. The mayor did include that in his memo, basically that he's had several requests for that, and then also $90,000 for traffic signal improvements. That's actually a capital replacement as far as replacing control cabinets and certain things for the existing traffic signals. And then we've got $84,000 for the TAP grant, $40,000 for portable changeable message boards, $25,000 for an aerial photo, and $25,000 for garbage carts. And then Department of Public Works street projects. We did put a little bit more money into streets this year, so we've got $1,450,000 for a complete reconstruction of a lot of the streets sort of in the area around St. Michael's Hospital, Fremont, Sims, Jersey, Price, High, Illinois, and 4th. That cost is just the city portion. It doesn't include utilities. One thing that I did want to note is that we had originally hoped to also do some portions of College and Briggs Street. Unfortunately, due to funding, those had to be removed. However, speaking with the Director of Public Works, what his plan is to actually bid them as alternates, so that that would be kind of an alternate project, so that if the bids come in favorable, then you have the ability to potentially add one of those back in and get as much done as we possibly can. Then we also have $1,150,000 for Walter, Sandy, Wildwood, and Maple Bluff, which are all in the Fleet Farm area, and then Cozy Street. So, yes.
And this would maybe be something for Scott, and I'm sure Alder Kneebone is going to want to know that Walter will have paved shoulders, provide safe access for children walking to school.
I will defer to, and he's actually right here. Why don't you step on up to the plate?
I'm kind of here, because I was in the hallway, so I didn't hear what the
Yeah,
question was.
kind of here.
Kind of here.
Walter Street,
Yes.
and again, I'm speaking on behalf of Alder Kneebone here, she could probably speak for herself, but Walter Street, because it leads to Bannock School, there were, for a number of years, Alder Kneebone has been asking that those shoulders are paved to provide safe access for children walking to school, and that's part of the Safe Routes to School.
Exactly, that's, when we go through things, we're still, there's refunding, it's gonna take a little more data, but we have a model to help us prioritize some of the roads. It gives us at least a numerical value, we can start to compare from it. Part of that are those recommendations that come out of things like the Bike and Ped program,
Okay.
as well as the Safe Routes to School. So, not only as the condition assessment of Walter Street, but the Safe Routes to School program is what gives that a higher priority number than many. So what we intend to do there is make corrections there for multi-use paths, sidewalk,
Wonderful.
wider shoulders. So we would definitely
Wonderful.
improve the bicycle and pedestrian accommodations through that area for the elementary kids. Yep.
Thank you.
Okay, so, and then also 750,000 for road surface improvements. That includes a lot of your preventative things like chip sealing, and then also any minor resurfacing that has to be done, such as what we just talked about in Public Works with doing a portion of Nebel Street. So the total road projects, $3,350,000 is what's proposed for 2020. When we did our capital analysis 3 years ago, we came up with that we would need about $3.5 million for road projects a year. So, and as you can see, it did take us a little bit of time to get there. But, here we are getting close to that $3.5 million number. And also, if you compare it to the past, we're really double some of the other, like the 2017 number, for instance. So certainly I know that our roads are in less than perfect condition. Certainly we're aware of that, but I think one thing that we can tell people is that we are putting more money into roads. Yes.
And just as a reminder, so when we had a significant tax increase a few years ago, this was the main reason for it.
Yes. Yep, we had an increase of about 12% in the total tax levy, a few years ago. So, okay. And then moving into fleet vehicles and equipment, we're looking at new plow trucks, 5 of them, $946,000. A new Zamboni for the Willett Arena, new detective and undercover vehicles for the police department, and a new mower. And then also we do have a vehicle and equipment fund, which is typically it's used vehicle proceeds. When we sell a vehicle, the proceeds go into there so that we can recycle it and put it back into the fleet to try to keep the fleet up to date. So in order to fund all of this, we are proposing taking $274,000 from that fleet and equipment fund in order to make these replacements happen. Okay, and then for the fire department, they've got a few different things here, some IT infrastructure updates, a remote training connection so that they can have classes at one station and have other people participate from the other station, and then also turnout gear, fire equipment, fire hose, technical rescue equipment, some of the standard things that the fire department needs to keep updated and continually replace. And then we've got the Parks Department. They do need a new pool filter system. That's $115,000. And then we're also looking at a rubber flooring replacement at the Willett for $75,000. Park improvements at Emerson for $60,000. Some tuck point repairs at Gerke. Irrigation for Piffner, and actually that one was a previous capital project, and it was originally budgeted at $45,000, and the director has requested an extra $25,000 in order to get that project done, just based on how the bids came in. So, and then police department, They have some pretty significant needs in terms of IT and IT hardware, and of course, for the police department, they need to keep everything up to date and secure. So about $110,000 for computer hardware, $40,000 for repeater radios, and $11,000 for tasers. Yes?
When is the garage for the PD slated? Is it, when we moved over here, that was a discussion that was going to occur fairly quickly?
That is on the capital plan right now for 2023.
That wasn't my recollection, but we can have that discussion later, so.
Sure. Okay, and then as far as lingering issues, so that is sort of the capital list, but I do just want to throw something on the table as far as for future planning and kind of continuing to think about our future challenges. You know, there's three main concerns that I have related to capital, and one of them is that we still haven't built anything into the capital budget for new items or for adding additional assets. So in other words, the initial analysis that we did back in 2016 and did raise taxes in order to do it, it was just based on, okay, we've got this many miles of street, this is what it takes to replace a street. We've got this many plow trucks and they need to be replaced, every so many years, so this is how much we need to set aside for replacing plow trucks. What we didn't really build in was anything for, okay, what happens when we need a brand new asset, a brand new piece of equipment, what happens if we want to do a new park? Well, none of that is in the plan. So it's something that we need to think about as far as, okay, how do we incorporate some kind of a process or a system for these new assets? How do we handle that? Because one of the concerns is we can't keep putting other things off so that we can add new stuff that we hadn't planned for. We need to make sure that we have a capital plan that's sufficient for what we need to do. And if we're, let's say, delaying replacement. So for instance, with plow trucks this year, there were 7 up for replacement. We only replaced 5 of them because we didn't have the money to replace all 7. And that's just a concern that you can kind of build to that backlog. So that's just something that we need to think about, and we need to think about a more long-term solution for that. The other concern that I'd throw out there, and this especially relates to roads, is that there's really no allowance in our capital planning for catching up for the fact that we underfunded many capital priorities for a long period of time, especially as it relates to roads. So that is something that, we at least need to be aware of, is that, we did kind of start in the hole with our capital planning and finally getting a capital plan that's sustainable. And it's just something that we need to be aware of, that, certainly some of these backlogs aren't going to fix themselves overnight. And then another concern is increases in the cost of construction. That's something that I'm working with DPW on right now, but there are some indications that costs for roads and for facilities and things have gone up, and the analysis that we did 3 years ago, the cost might have increased by more than the rate of inflation that we had anticipated. So I guess those are 3, I think, major challenges that we do have. So as far as just a couple of different solutions, and I thought, I always hate it when somebody, is on me about a problem and they have no solution whatsoever. So I thought, okay, got to think of some solutions just for the sake of having a discussion. So as far as for a solution that we really don't have any budget to pay for new assets, a couple of different options. One is if we think that something is important and we understand it's not in our capital replacement program, but we feel it's important, we could increase taxes to pay for that. And we could talk about what kind of an increase that is, if that's 3 cents or 5 cents or 10 cents per thousand, explain to people what they're getting for that increase, and then potentially make that decision to say, okay, we didn't plan for this in our capital replacement schedule, but we'd like to do this extra thing, provide this extra amenity, this is what it's going to cost, and take that approach to it rather than bumping other needed capital replacements out of the plan. We could also look at, okay, do we want to permanently build in a budget amount for new assets? Now, of course, that would require some kind of a tax increase. It's not really possible for us to have more money without people paying more. That's just a reality of life, but that's another option that you could look at to say, okay, are we going to set aside $100,000 a year for new stuff, build that into the plan? Your third option is you just simply say, we're not going to do anything new, we're just going to replace existing stuff that we have. Those are just the options that I could think of. If other people think of other options that we can put up here, certainly we can have that discussion. Yeah.
So I appreciate this discussion, and I hope we have a more robust discussion, and probably not tonight, because these folks aren't here for a robust capital project discussion, although I look forward to it. I think starting a list of those things, we've talked about moving streets department out of Buchholz. And of course, the space needs will continue. And understanding, the replacement turnaround for not only plows, but the fire trucks, and at what point if we need a new fire station, of course, we've talked about the PD and a garage for them so they don't have to have their cars running out in the cold all the time. So listing those, and then the streets, and so that we can better understand the enormity of it. And I think then it helps the public too, when we start detailing these things and their eyes get big and they go, oh my gosh. I particularly like the idea about building into a budget, because you did it with, the one line item is for maintenance. I think it was 50 or 60,000, which is general maintenance. I know some municipalities that don't budget for that. And then when the carpet is running so ragged and people are tripping over it, they're like, we didn't plan for this. So I think a combination of the first two bullets is a good way to go and begin by detailing what we need.
Sure, yeah, absolutely. Because there's definitely a lot of things on that list, and I think it is important to, have those discussions and kind of make some decisions about, okay, these are the things that we're going to really look to accomplish, and these are the things that maybe don't rise quite as high on the list, because sometimes I think it's also good to, if you just tell people what they want to hear, and you have no way of following through on it, you're really not doing people any favors with that. So I think that is important, especially when you look at our 5-year plan and you look at, 2021 through 2023, how far over those are. I think that we need to have a lot of those discussions, because I don't think that we want to promise somebody something or say, oh, well, maybe next year, and then next year comes around, oh, well, maybe next year, we'll just keep bumping it a year.
Right.
I think we want to maybe get a little bit better as far as long-term planning and being candid about the resources that we have.
Well, this falls in line with strategic planning as well, because if we don't have the path to the future that we all agree upon, it's very hard to have an understanding of the assets we need to get to the end point of our mission and vision. So,
Sure.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I appreciate this discussion.
Sure, okay, great. And then also another challenge is that, we don't have any allowance for catching up on that backlog that we started with. So we could also look at increasing the capital budget in order to make some progress on that, or I guess your other option is just accept that it's going to take some time to catch up. I guess I'd say those are the two options there. And then the other ones, as far as the increase in construction costs, again, we can look at increasing the capital budget. I know last month I had suggested maybe we look at setting a target percentage for an annual increase in the tax levy of, say, 2.5% or 3%. To say, okay, this is what we think is reasonable every year, and then if we have additional money there, we can put it into capital We can look at other options to reduce costs. I've asked the DPW to at least look at, okay, why are costs going up by this much and what can we do about it? And then the only other option, and again, I just throw this out there because it's an option, is to try and ride it out and hope that costs come back down. I don't know if that's gonna happen, short of some big economic changes that probably aren't desirable anyway. But those were just some options that I thought of. So I do think that it's important to continue this conversation. I hope that before we get to next year and next year's capital, we maybe have a little bit more clarity and hopefully we at least have a good plan as far as how are we going to handle the new assets, the things that we don't have already built into the capital plan, because I know that it's a large concern for departments who feel like they shouldn't be pitted against, different things that come up where, something new comes up and now they're not getting things replaced on schedule or getting the investments that they were anticipating.
So since we have so many members of the public here, I'm going to take the opportunity to ask you a question I know you have the answer to. When we go out for bids for asphalt, and Director Badoon could answer this, how many bids do we get?
Not very many.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's very hard in a non-competitive market to reduce one of the most expensive components of road reconstruction projects, and that's asphalt, with only one bidder showing up. So
Yeah.
I want the public to be aware that that's one of the biggest challenges.
Yeah, I would definitely agree, and you also have a pretty strong economy right now, which does have an impact. And the other thing that we're hearing from a lot of contractors is the difficulty in finding skilled workers and finding operators and truck drivers and people that are qualified to do that kind of work. And that I think in a different labor market, you'd maybe have some of these contractors growing and expanding and hiring more people. But right now, what we're hearing from them is that they can't find the people to expand. So that also creates an issue for sure. Okay, so and then, this is just presentation tonight. So, and then October Finance and Council is when we would be looking at taking any action, certainly over the next month. If you have any questions, need to discuss anything, just let me know, or any of the departments that have capital requests. I know are always happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you, Corey. Questions from the committee? For Corey?
Yeah. According to the memo from the mayor, he's basically saying that the aerial photography that we're required, we're looking at possibly using the counties. Is that going to be for the GIS? I don't know if Joel's in here.
Yeah, my understanding is that, that would be.
So it's a priority. It's not something that, we can settle for low resolution. The aerial photography is.
Yeah, he just wanted to know if the aerial photography is going to be used for GIS.
Is that?
Sure.
So it needs to be a higher resolution for that purpose. It's not.
Absolutely. We have a couple different ways we use it. One is obviously a good supplement to the GIS, so you can get a frame of reference for things. So
Yeah.
a lot of the different planning level documents we do and stuff like that it gets used for. On the utility side of things, we use it to verify things like stormwater, impervious maps, that kind of thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, thanks. And I guess with that being said, as I was combing through this, I noticed through the parks that there's a request for $60,000 for Emerson Park. I guess I'm just a little confused with that because through the years that I've been on council, whenever we've had any kind of a group come to the council requesting a new park, whatever it may be, we pretty much said that, if you want it, you're gonna have to find the funds because the city just doesn't have the capability of doing it. Some of the parks that I can recall that happened with Sculpture Park, Dog Park, the disc golf parks, Veterans Memorial Park, which is an existing park, but a group of people took the initiative to do a fundraiser and replace all the playground equipment on not a penny of the taxpayers' dime. McDill Lake District. We just approved, they used our borrowing to purchase a garbage truck for their weed harvesting operation. We didn't give them a penny for it. They took it upon themselves to do it. What I don't understand is why a park that was just created this year, and now we're basically giving them $60,000. But we have other parks that, I mean, you go through the list here that have been waiting in line for years. Bucco Park, playground equipment. I mean, there's several different things here. Things have been moved because we just don't have the money. I don't get why, where's our priorities here? Where are they? When this Emerson Park proposal came to the council, I took the time and I drew up a plan to possibly offset some of these costs by creating some single-family parcels within that block so that we could sell them and take that money and put it back into this park and make a nice park, and it would be a very good, quick turnaround. Because I can imagine that those parcels would have sold rather quickly. But I don't know who's requesting the 60,000. I don't see a plan on what we're gonna do with the 60,000. But I would hope that that request is removed from this capital budget, just for the fact that we need to start prioritizing here. I mean, you go through the list of things that had to be moved around. I mean, we had to take road repairs and reconstructs off because we don't have the money. But then yet, we're gonna be putting $60,000 to a park that was just created. I don't know if this council doesn't understand that we only have one pot of money here. And just including another hand to pull that out of that pot, it just takes away from something else. So I would hope that this $60,000 is removed from this budget. Thank you.
Call his office.
I have already.
Anyone have questions or comments? Okay, thank you, Corey.
Just, may I respond?
I don't want to get in conversation, but
Okay.
go ahead.
If you will recall and had looked at last year's capital budget, this was projected out for Emerson Park for 2020, so it shouldn't be new. We can have a further discussion about it. Thank you.
Thank you. I have one question, Ed.
Yeah.
Are we paying anything down on our debt?
So for 2020, because of the number of development agreements that we have, if those all happen on time, you know, in other words, if they all get completed and we pay out all the development incentives and have to borrow for all of those, the debt would actually increase for 2020. Otherwise, we have our capital portion structured so that basically whatever we're retiring in principal is what we're replacing with new debt, but that doesn't include the other effects that you have with TIF district investments.
Sure.
Basically, no.
So
no,
the
it's-
answer is
it's-
no.
No, it's going up.
Okay, thank you. And again, you can call Corey's office if you have any questions or talk to anybody in the office, they know all about it. Okay, let's move on to item 2, which is a request of funding from Create Portage County for a New Fox capital campaign. I guess, who do we call for in this? We should probably talk with who's in charge of Create.
Well, should we have staff first provide us a bit of background on the communication that occurred between Create and the city?
Oh, that was in, oh, okay, you want,
So generally, we would ask Michael. Michael's not here, so I don't
So
know
who's
if Kyle
our-
or DJ wish to.
where's DJ? Could you come, we want to talk about background for Create Portage County?
Sure. DJ Schneider, Building Inspection Superintendent, Interim Director. We've been kind of going on and off with the Fox now for some time. Raise order has been put out. There is a list of items now that the Fox has in their possession, that if they take care of this list of items, I think it's 4 or 5 items, that I suspend the raise order till May 1st of 2020. This list of items will shore up a truss that's in question, the roof leaks that are in question, and a couple other sagging members, essentially. At that, I think there's a disconnect right now as to what the building is going to be versus what it is. And I think that creates responsibility at this point to convey to everybody what the building's going to be used for and what portions need to stay there. If the structure is safe, I'm okay with it standing, and the inside can be fixed in the future, and that's the whole point of this punch list. But at this point, from what I hear in the past, there's been fundraising in the past and it hasn't gotten anywhere. So I guess that is the gist of it. If there's a specific question, I can answer those.
I have. Okay, and so the request from Create came to your office, or was it with Michael when Michael was still here?
Was it submitted to you, Corey?
I want to say it was submitted to Michael and forwarded to me.
Okay. So may I, this is more commentary, I've attended a number of meetings at the Idea Center on this very topic, where members, leaders from the Village of Plover, City of Stevens Point, Portage County, attended these meetings to discuss the future of the theater and the parcel. Let's just call it that. It's not a theater anymore. And I will say, in each one of those meetings, the folks from Plover were like, let's go, let's figure out how to make this work. And I'm sure the executive director from Create will be able to illuminate sort of the plans for the building. There was also support from Portage County in the way of being sort of the group that would apply for grants on a federal level if they needed a county entity to do those things. And again, this council has also indicated to a pretty good degree the support. So again, I understand what you needed to do as far as the building inspector. And I'm glad, thank you for working with them to develop the checklist, very much like you did for the Altenburg building, which was a success. And I think we can do a similar sort of thing, so I appreciate your work on that.
Sure.
Questions? But the only question I have is, now you're talking about all this money that they need to do something there. What they're doing is a Band-Aid. The roof and all that is going to have to go. Why would be funneling money into that building if it's all got to go? I don't understand this. The roof is bad. I don't think that roof would ever be used again. I think it needs to go. So why are we propping it up? Why are we doing this? Why are we moving forward with the demolition and get it over with?
That's where it gets conflicting in my position right now. From a straight up safety standpoint, you're 100% right. I mean, I would look at the financial side of it as, if you have this money, take down that portion of building that's really in question. That's where the couple has fallen down, sinking into the building. That's where the big broken truss is. That would be my recommendation at that point, would be to tear that portion of the building down, whether the council finds to give them the money or not, however they want to use that. That would be how I would recommend they do that, because that would take care of a large portion of the structural issues. You still got the front portion where the facade, everybody's concerned with saving, which I see why. There's still some roof issues with that, but I think that's on the outer layers in that portion, so I think that portion could be fixed relatively inexpensively, but I think there's a good portion of that, or not necessarily the exterior structure of it, but that whole portion is going to be renovated also. So it would be my recommendation, if they go ahead and this happens, get rid of that back portion where the structural issues are, and then however we can go about getting that roof sealed. They tried it last winter again, didn't hold up more than 2 months. but get some sort of membrane on there that's gonna hold up to keep the water out. And at that point, it'd just be a matter of securing that back end until they can figure out what they're gonna do from a financial standpoint, if they can raise the funds and then go forward from there.
Thank you. Any other questions? I guess, do we need to hear from anybody else from CREATE, or what do you think?
I would think so.
Yeah, I would recommend the executive director.
Probably a good idea. Name and address for the,
Greg Wright, 1217 Franklin Street, 1039B Ellis for Create Portage County. I appreciate we're in a little bit of a weird situation because we've been working with Michael Ostrowski, who surprise left us for Texas, and we're still a little upset, but we'll forgive him eventually. But just to make sure that we have all the correct information out there about how this project is moving forward, why we're asking for the money we're asking for, and how this is going to work. We are asking for this money to do what you're suggesting, which is actually address the building officially. So the plan that we're submitting, the plan that we've submitted is two chunks of money, a $250,000 chunk now and a $250,000 chunk that could happen either next year or the year after, or over 2 years if necessary. That first chunk of money being so that we could have the money to actually do the demolition work that we think is necessary to get the building ready for a construction project. So that would be addressing the roof, taking care of the fallen truss, taking a lot of the building down because we don't ever see the building being used as a historic theater again, sort of putting a final period on that phase of the building, gutting it, again, dealing with any sort of water issues, masonry issues, roof issues, facade issues that we see, so that the building can be ready for construction in the spring. Our hope is that will buy us enough time to do the fundraising we need to do the construction project we have planned for that space next spring. But if under some circumstance we were not successful with our fundraising efforts, it would position the city to work with us to find somebody to redevelop that space and not lose the historic facade. That is, as one thing they talk about is, what is it, missing teeth downtowns, where you lose buildings that become parking lots and they're almost impossible to fix. So the idea is that that first chunk of money, in addition to funds we've already raised, would be applied to doing all of that demolition work and securing of the building so that it is safe. There aren't any conditional issues of the building that we have to worry about to move the project forward. We will have a plan from our architect Tuesday, is what she said, to send out to contractors to bid for that work. So we are trying as quickly as possible to move that forward, to get that question off the table, but this would help us with some immediate funding while we do the rest of our fundraising to get there. The second set of $250,000 we're asking for as an investment in the economic development work we've been doing as an organization, that supports, and that's what people here to talk about, the number of projects and new businesses that we are running out of this space that have economic impact on the city. So we're looking for that as an actual positive investment in the future project of the work we're doing. Just as a case in point, I looked up today, Eau Claire did a project recently that has gotten a lot of attention nationally, their Confluence Center, the Pablo Art Center specifically, which does about half of what we do out of our space because it's focused entirely on the arts, was a $45 million project that the city of Eau Claire put $3.5 million in, and the county of Eau Claire put $5 million into. So to give you a sense of what similar communities, Eau Claire is very similar to Stevens Point. If you look at net migration maps, we're losing a lot of people to Eau Claire right now. Similar size community, similar, obviously in the same state, dealing with the same state laws. That county and city together put $8.5 million into that project, which is a very similar project to what we're trying to do. So again, that's what we're looking for is, we're trying to divide this up in a way that can be divided into multiple fiscal years, so it's a little bit easier for the city to afford. We're trying to not even ask for that second set of money unless we're successful in our fundraising efforts to move forward with construction. But we do believe that the immediate $250,000 ask to take care of securing the building so we don't lose that facade, even if our project isn't successful, is valuable to the long-term economic development of the city, as you don't want to lose that real estate on Main Street. Any questions?
thank you. Jeremy?
So the $250,000 that you're saying for the phase one, is that, how accurate is that number? I mean, Where did that number come from?
So we have been talking to architects, and we've done some estimating with Ellis Construction to get a sense of where that demolition number could fall. The low end has been about $200,000 and the high end was about $400,000. It's going to depend on how careful we are in the demolition, if we try to save materials that are in there or not. And so we haven't had a chance to bid that out yet, but we are confident that with additional funds, we already have pledged that we can meet that, whatever the costs are of demolition without a dollar amount.
You do have other additional funds for phase one other than the 250 that you're
Yeah.
requesting
Yeah.
from us? Okay, thanks.
Any other questions?
I have a question. How much money do you have pledged so far?
So we're at about $1.2 million right now pledged,
And your goal is how long? Is
3.5. I mean, we're still very early in most of our asks. That's one of the challenging parts about how the raise order came out, is that, again, part of why we're trying to buy ourselves time is our fundraising window was to go through April, and so things got sped up for us much more quickly. We are in a lot of conversations, obviously, with local businesses right now, and getting positive responses from most of them. I will say one of the comments that we hear quite often from businesses is they want to see a commitment from the city first, that this is viewed as economic development work for the community, and they really want to make sure that there's a commitment there. And so that's something we are hearing from a number of our business partners as we go to ask them for money. We also are in some conversations with the state as well. So the Department of Administration came recently to tour the Idea Center. They're trying to figure out if this is a model they can replicate in other communities as well. Last week we got invited by the Department of Revenue to come to their Economic Development Summit to represent what we're doing as well there. So the state is taking some interest in this, but we need some time to have those conversations to figure out if there's dollars attached to that interest.
Thank you. Any more questions? Okay, I guess, thank you. I guess we should ask for any more comments, Chris? Yes, Director.
One last thing, and here again, I got two hats I'm wearing. I would say the one hat I'm going to put on for you guys to consider too is if you do go with the plan and they do not come up with the funding, so we're looking at $250,000 now. With that remaining building, I'm estimating the demolition of that building, the whole building, to be around $200,000. So if we do go with the 250 now and they don't raise the funding, what happens is if they don't have that money come next April, May, June, July, and we go through with the rest of the raise order, there's a pretty good chance the city's going to have to bite that off to knock down the rest of the building. And granted, you can charge it back, but you're never going to recoup that money. So there is a potential adding on if the fundraising effort does not go through. So I just wanted to throw that out there, that that potential is out there. So.
Okay, and DJ, and sorry to just kind of pop a question on you then, but so what would you say that would be then? I mean, as far as a ballpark number
What's
on the
left
cost?
to tear down?
Yeah.
I'm going to guess you're probably still going to be in the $150,000 range, just because that portion is where the majority of the adjacent buildings are connected. So that portion is a lot more difficult to raise, quite frankly, because it's going to take a lot more time. The process is much, much slower, and there's a lot more risk involved with that, tearing down that portion.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Director Lemke.
Just on the heels of the capital talk, I wanted to also put it out there. Everybody hopes that the effort on the Fox is a successful one. However, the city's involvement in that also is a competing interest with other infrastructure projects, right? So we need to keep that in mind too. I don't know for certain, is this potentially TIF funding? Is that where we're going for the money, right? Mm-hmm. So if that's the case, there's a lot of talks with revisioning downtown and all these studies that have been done. There's a lot of public infrastructure improvements proposed in that. So when we're tasked with doing that, whatever pot of money this is coming out of could narrow up a little bit of what we're able to do there. Hopefully we can do it all right, but just so we're making the decision with that in mind.
Thank you.
Can I ask a clarification?
Sure you can. From who?
From DJ?
Lemke?
DJ.
Oh, DJ.
Basically, to go in there and tear that building down, completely take it down, don't keep the facade. What, you said 200,000?
Roughly, yes.
For the whole, just the way it sits now, go in there?
Right.
Okay. Thanks.
Any more questions or comments or whatever? Alderperson Nebo.
Thank you, Alderperson Mary Kneebone, District 7, 5718 Sandpiper Drive. We just heard our comptroller treasurer say we might, in order to take care of all our capital expenditures, we might need to raise our budget 3% a year. I've got constituents that are concerned about being taxed out of their homes. $500,000 could go an awful long way in my district to repair alleys, resurface some streets that are really bad, maybe even pay for Emerson Park. Everything that I have heard from my constituents oppose this on all grounds. They think that it's good money after bad. They don't think that their tax dollars should be paying for this. They would rather see the money go to infrastructure repair, road repair, anything but handing. And I know this building, since I moved here in 2006, nothing's been done. Fundraisers could have been done long ago. But all of a sudden now it's going to fall down, and now they want more money from the city. I can't support this, so thank you.
Thank you. We should probably go right out to the, Chief.
Obviously, there's a lot of people here. So when the people from the overflow room come in, only one can come in at a time because of our capacity, just to let you know. I don't want a big rush on you.
Okay,
Thank you.
thanks. Logan is leaving, so now we get two.
Yeah.
So our attorney's leaving.
Okay, is anybody else here like to speak?
Oh, I'm sorry. Tim Seabrook, 2933 Cozy Street, Portage County Historical Society. The city is going to expend this money anyway. As DJ has already said, about 200, maybe a little more than that, 200,000 to tear it down. Why not do something positive with that money? You're going to expend it anyway and help save the building along the lines of what CREATE has been suggesting.
Okay, thank you. Name and address, please.
My name is Karen Sig, 125 Virginia Circle, Stevens Point. And one way I prepared some comments, and I may ad lib now here. My name is Karen Sig. I'm as executive director of a local nonprofit, a City of Stevens Point property owner, and a board member of CREATE Portage County. I am here to ask the Finance Committee to approve funds towards the new Fox project. And the nonprofit I work for is Recycling Connections. We've been around in the city since 1981. And I think this project, I know this project is more than a building. And this is about CREATE Portage County and the programming that they've already been doing with the Idea Center on Ellis Street. And with Recycling Connections that I work with, we've already partnered with CREATE Portage County on, for example, helping locate recycled content feedstock for the new large-scale 3D printer that you may have heard about that they received grant funding for. We have also helped partner with them on helping divert organics generated during the Levitt concert series that, again, CREATE Portage County as part of their programming has received grant funding for. That brings tremendous inputs to the community. We have also just used this facility for our staff meetings, brainstorming, board meetings, community presentations that are open, again, to the public. What we have all found with Recycling Connections is that CREATE Portage County works to collaborate with the community, businesses, and other nonprofits. Personally, I've been a residential property owner in the city of Stevens Point for over 34 years. One time, my husband and I owned a couple properties. I no longer live physically in the city limits, but we owned our home for 13 years. We still own a rental home that, again, we bought 34 years ago, and it's near the downtown and the university areas, and we both personally want to express our support for this city's investment. And while those two scenarios are important to me, really what is most important to me as my strongest support is as a board member of CREATE Portage County. To me, this position has offered me a close-up view of the programming and support that this nonprofit has through the Idea Center that has supported entrepreneurs and a variety of programs that for all age and demographics in our community, again, city and county. To some, this new Fox project may sound like just an attempt to save a historic building or facade. But reality, this is not it. It's to support the continuation of an economic development project that has already demonstrated proven results. Your support for a new Fox will help transition the current Idea Center to a new location that will be designed for its diverse programming and support of, again, new entrepreneurs and business sectors. So this new Fox, as Greg Wright had alluded to, it's the type of project that is the future for communities, striving to support entrepreneurs and to help promote employee attraction and retention for our area businesses. So I request that you do support this as generously as possible. Thank you for your time.
Sean?
One thing that I would ask Greg is that, because I know the council is kind of is a little bit concerned because this has been a project that has been going on for years. What is different this time as opposed to the other times when people have been trying to redo the Fox? I know when Judge Flashhour was on board and so on, and things just stalled for years and years.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of, I understand that question. I think that anybody who knows the full history of the project understands that this is actually the first time there's ever been an actual fundraising attempt to raise money for the building. So the building was owned by the same family until 2013, and nothing was able to happen with the building during that stretch of time, right? So the very first time the building changed any sort of ownership hands was in 2013, and so that's when initial efforts started. It was donated to the Arts Alliance. There are some, Jim Featherston is on the board that was created with me that was called the Fox on Main LLC to explore reopening it as a theater. So the original plan, out of respect for the family and the history of the building, was to see if we could renovate it as a theater. We looked at business plans and found out that didn't work. That took us a couple of years to figure out. We studied more than 50 different theaters in similar sized communities and with similar sized venues, and just found that wasn't a revenue generating business plan. And so the question then became, what could you do with that property that would actually have impact and value in the community? And so then we thought about this idea of an innovation center, but also had not piloted that. So we talked to the county about moving to a space to actually take the time to pilot that project so we could responsibly see if there was a way to make that work in the community. We've been running the Idea Center for 3 years. We've launched more than 50 businesses out of the space. We have 175 people of key fobs who use the space regularly. I will add, we did that because the city asked us to. The city wanted to see somebody start to support entrepreneurship more effectively, and they asked our organization to look into doing that. We do that at an incredibly low cost to the city, and you'll see from the variety of speakers here the number and diversity of projects we support in that way. And so we didn't want to go to the community and we did some initial fundraising to try to do a structural study of the building, to do some architectural work, but we have never gone to the community before and asked for a large amount of money to see if we could do something with this building. And we weren't going to do that until we thought we had a revenue generating, successful and sustainable business plan to do so. This is significantly cheaper than it would cost for us to renovate the building, right? It would cost probably $12 to $15 million if we restored it to its 1894 historic theater use, right? We don't think that's valuable to the community given what we know about how those spaces have run in other communities. This is a low-cost project on the whole that provides co-working space, entrepreneurship space, maker space, community gathering space that meets almost all of the targeted outlined goals in the targeted areas master plan that you all just completed to create innovation hubs, civic space, other things like that. Our civic spaces are indoors, which is nice in a community that has a lot of winter. And we have this property and can do something with it, unlike most of the properties outlined in the targeted areas master plan that are currently owned by other businesses. And so this is a way to have impact right now on a project that is, again, in line with the city's own plans for strategic planning for the downtown.
Okay, anything else?
Hi, I'm Maggie Marquardt, 2916 Algoma Street. I work for the University for the College of Fine Arts and Communication, and I also serve as a board member for Create Portage County.
Hi, my name is Tommy Marquardt. I'm in 5th grade at Washington Elementary. I go to the Idea Center for things like Tinker Time and to learn about 3D printers and film. and I hope that the city will help move to a permanent space downtown. And I dream of being an author and illustrator and think the new Fox will help make that possible. Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
Hi, my name is Barry Kalnin, 2101 Falcons Cove. I'm also a board member at Create. You're going to have a lot of people talking about a lot of different things. I kind of come to Create a different way. I was brought to Stevens Point as a +1, and the city has done a lot of work to try and bring businesses to the area. Large businesses, and you've been very successful. Got a lot of companies that are bringing one person that gets a job, plus another professional who has to find some work, bring their job with them. Create has been a huge help to me to basically find connections. My business is in engineering drafting, and I'm in charge of the 3D printer that a lot of the people might be talking about. And bringing that technology to Stevens Point has been something I've really enjoyed over the past 2 years, I guess. But just being able to have a place that the second person who's been brought to Stevens Point can go for a office rather than your home. You can have meetings at the Create Idea Center that you'd rather not have in your living room. A lot of big cities and a lot of people who are brought to the area find that very, very useful. Now, the new building, of course, will be a lot more professional than the current location, which I think is very valuable. I do believe that innovation and a lot of the things that we do at Create does bring entrepreneurship, and as Greg had mentioned, a lot of businesses have been started out of there, and it is amazing to see the people who connect in that area. I hope in the future that the 3D printing lab will be an extension for the public. We do have one of the only large-scale 3D printers in North America that's available to the public. This printer is large enough that the only other ones available are usually private companies, and we will be using probably very shortly all recycled materials from one of the other board members had mentioned. The only other city doing that in the world is Amsterdam to do public works projects. Benches, things the city wants, art, various things. And I think this chance that we have to bring this to the public and to the educational departments of the city is a very unique thing, and it's a cutting edge technology that I think has a great place in the city. So.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Paula Schleiss, 2315 Conant Street, and I am here as a member of the Create Portage County Board of Directors in support of the request for $250,000 to assist in the demolition of the unsound portion of the Fox Theater building and the commitment of $250,000 to assist in the retention of the front facade and reconstruction of the building to provide a new home for the Idea Center. My family moved to Stevens Point in 1963 when I was a teenager. I remember a vibrant downtown with many stores and businesses. I remember spending time with friends, going shopping. I remember the mall being built and the promise of great things to come. I watched the Main Street businesses wither and die. I watched the mall fail and be demolished. But in the last decade or so, I have watched a Main Street being reborn. Storefronts are filled with diverse businesses that support our community and offer employment to our citizens. During this time, the Idea Center was established and is thriving as an opportunity for our citizens to invent, design, network, and create new opportunities. We need a new home, and Main Street is where we belong. Following the path of other cities in mall creation and other decisions has not worked for us. We are unique. We are a city of developers, adventurers, and innovators. We love having a centered community, and the Idea Center will give us a base of operations as a more creative, engaged, and valuable resource to help build a prosperous future for our community.
Good evening, members of the Finance Committee. My name is Ryan Kardowski. I live at 1601 Clark Street in the city of Stevens Point. It should be noted that I'm also the Community Development Director for the Village of Plover, but I'll preface that with what I'm saying tonight doesn't necessarily reflect the Village of Plover. As a local economic development practitioner, our area lacks a business incubator. Actually, before Mr. Ostrowski left, we had talked about that quite extensively. CREATE fills this need and provides Portage County with critical incremental economic development for this area. In turn, this makes a greater Stevens Point area more diverse economically, resulting in a more financially resilient community. I understand that tight, nay, strangling levy limits may limit the city's ability to provide assistance. However, the return on investment that CREATE provides far exceeds the requested dollar amount. New businesses that can collaborate and generate other business for these businesses will result in new organic employment and growth results, which will lead to more taxable entities and a higher quality of life that will also generate local wealth. As the city seeks to revitalize downtown, I remind you that a lack of a storefront by demolishing the Fox Theater will create a hole along your main street. Any good planning textbook will tell you that missing teeth along your main street may be an indicator to residents and visitors as an area of economic distress. Supporting the CREATE plans will provide continued economic activity in the heart of Portage County and in downtown Stevens Point. I would implore this committee to fund either partially or the full request. And with that, I would thank you for your time tonight.
Hello, everyone. My name is Leah Knights, 520 Copperleaf Court. I have no formal affiliation with CREATE other than seeing the tremendous value that this brings our community. When I first learned about the New Fox initiative, like many here, I was eager to learn more about how I could support making this a reality for Stevens Point. I'll talk a little bit about some of the specific examples that this space might be utilized for, as I think that's one of the biggest challenges we've faced is just lack of clarity around what this means and how the space can be utilized. An innovation center is a feature usually seen in larger cities. Stevens Point may be small, but we have such depth. We have creativity, forward thinking, and most importantly, people like Greg Wright to bring big city features to a smaller, more close-knit community. A New Fox is an opportunity for growth, creativity, new business, collaboration, philanthropy, entrepreneurship, friendship, social gatherings, and things that we don't even know yet exist. It's very much up to our community to decide how we will use this space. Again, given this is a new idea and laden with new concepts, I want to share with you some tip of the iceberg hypothetical scenarios that might help us better digest in what capacity the space may serve. Already mentioned tonight, consider a full-time freelancer or an employee who works remotely. They may feel isolated working regularly from their home office. As a result, they reserve one of the workspaces at the Fox to immerse themselves into a positive and productive environment. Consider the Women's Fund Spring Luncheon, St. Mike's Foundation Gala, Boys and Girls Club Wine and Cheese event, or another nonprofit hosting a fundraising event in the Fox venue space. Consider a student who's thinking about attending UWSP, or a relocation who's considering employment in Stevens Point. Grabbing a coffee and relaxing in the Commons area as they consider making this community their new home. And of course, central to the purpose of this facility, consider the Fox serving as a catalyst for an entrepreneur to pursue their idea or turn their side hustle into their central career, perhaps as a photographer, a health coach, a builder, a graphic designer, podcast host, artist, comedian, interior designer, writer, app developer, small business owner, founder of a nonprofit. The list is clearly limitless. By utilizing innovation centers, breakthrough tech products have been developed, from robotics and smart building to medical devices. There are also innovation centers that are specifically devoted to social change, facilitating collaborative and supportive environments to empower and overcome. Please join us in supporting this multifaceted initiative. Through the opportunity of a new Fox, we'll be in a position to exponentially strengthen, grow, and support our flourishing community. It's my hope that one day all of us in this room will be thanking Greg in hindsight for all of his leadership to make this vision a reality. Thank you.
Good evening, Serena Malott, 1665 Main Street. I would be remiss if I didn't mention my husband, Bill Sherrill, who sends his deepest regrets for not being with us this evening. He's at a work conference. Bill and I have gladly invested in our downtown, and most recently with the 145-year-old Claflin House located on the corner of Division and Main Street. On our behalf, I'm here to encourage the city to support a new Fox project, both the 250 now and 250 later. As Stevens Point competes with other cities, large and small, for attraction and retention of young professionals, it's critical for us to have the type of facility that we will find in a new Fox. These types of facilities are found in competitive cities and host specific amenities that support professional and business development and are the lifeblood of a thriving, modern, and verdant community. I've personally gained from attending programs and events at the current Idea Center location, including drawing class, a roundtable discussion on the impact of creativity in the workplace, and my personal favorite, the Spectral Micro Cinema. I get really excited to think that we can take all of this and more and move it from a rather hidden location to a very prominent one on Main Street. And I think it's important to think about and to mention that we're talking about the full space of the Fox. That equals 3 storefronts, so 3 potential missing teeth. 3 storefronts that could either be removed and void of any sort of life or development, or 3 storefronts that could have lights on, people coming and going, creating a downtown vibrancy that our community has not seen in decades. I believe this vision is critical to our future, and I ask all of you to support the city's engagement similar to what our private industry has already supported through their contributions and pledges. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Keith Bezak. I'm at 2133 McCulloch Street. I'm here speaking also on behalf of my wife, Lenora, who couldn't be here tonight. We are new transplants to Stevens Point. I spent some time here in high school and knew Greg from then, so I know Greg from about 20-some years ago. And then I lived away on the East Coast for the last 22 years and just recently moved back 3 months ago. And it was great to see the Fox Theater still standing. And equally as exciting as it was to see it, it was also very disappointing to see that nothing had happened with it, because people had talked about doing something with it, casually when I lived here 20-some years ago. And then I encountered Greg, got to hear about this great program that he's trying to get into there with Create. And, so I was thinking about it, and I looked at the fact that the building is still standing after 100+ years, from 1894 to now. There's a reason that we keep beautiful things around. And it obviously makes sense to everybody here that what's behind this historic facade is not so beautiful and needs to be taken care of, and that Greg and his team have plans for that. But what's so cool about it is that facade, the architectural facade that is a symbol of cultural significance, of beauty, of community, is mirrored in Create's program with what to do right behind the facade. Rarely do you have such a beautiful marriage of business and creative ideas with something that is from 1894. And so the fact that we have this opportunity to make something like this happen is a truly, truly significant moment that will give people an even greater reason to stroll the streets of downtown, to hang around downtown longer than 15 minutes or longer than their lunch, but to give them reason for being, to have the beautiful experience of running into somebody they know, or meeting somebody new, or encountering a new idea. These things live in urban environments, in downtown settings, not inside of a car in a parking lot that you have to drive to. This is where people are on the ground, on their feet. It's a very rare, significant, and special situation we have here. And I hope you guys feel generous with the money because it's such a special project, and thanks for hearing everything we have to say.
Good evening. I'm Carrie Wynn, and I am at 624 Sumery Avenue. I am a lifelong resident of Stevens Point. I went away for a while and then came back and have been here for quite a few years and have children and a husband, and we love this community. Some of the things that we love most about it is its vibrancy, its creativity, its collaborative nature. It's entrepreneurial. I think Create, what it does is it elevates all of those things. It makes us be more of who we want to be. And I think we talk a lot about this being about saving a building or about one organization, but it's so much more than that. And I hope you can recognize that tonight just from hearing a lot of the people that have spoken. So I'm not going to say a lot. I think you've heard a lot, but I can tell you that every single day, every person, it's hard for me to go through a day without talking to at least a few people who've been touched by the things that Create is doing, either directly or being a catalyst for some really remarkable things that are happening in our community. Just this last week, my daughter, her entire school went to the Create Center to meet some of the people who've been doing some of these fantastic things within the center. Our family has been able to experience some of the things like the Levitt concerts during the summertime and house concerts and the Trinket. Yeah. And then also I represent the University School of Business and Economics and School of Education in all of our healthcare areas. And I see also the benefit that it's bringing to our students here at UWSP, how it's giving them opportunities to have access to new ideas and participate in internship opportunities. And it's something too that I think is going to get them excited to not only just come here and go to school, but also to stay here in this community because it's exciting. I think it's contagious. So I hope that you consider supporting this and think of this as something much bigger than just the building and the one organization, but it's really, I think, a movement for our community.
I'm Laura West Kralchuk. I'm at 5220 Hoover Avenue in Plover. I am a board member of Create in support of this project, but I'm also the Vice President of Lending for CAP Services. And I have found great use for the facilities and the community space that Create can provide. Through Create, I can connect with entrepreneurs to provide them with the valuable resources that they're looking for. Create can provide that perfect setting to host networking events for entrepreneurs and the agencies that CAP partners with or other agencies partner with to provide them continual support. There was an event that I hosted last year at the current Create space, and attending there were members of the Small Business Administration. They were incredibly impressed at the resources that we have in this small rural community. I think the project before you today would increase our ability to bring entrepreneurs, supporting resources, and the community together in profoundly positive ways.
Thank you. Next. Yeah.
Hi, my name is Greg Lidke, 818 County Road K, North Custer. I facilitate a monthly event called Draw. It's now in its third year, and it's held at the Create Portage County Center. A wide variety of community members come to this drawing session to try something new, rekindle artistic interests, or fine-tune professional skills. It's a kind of an open-minded, mind-clearing event that brings all kinds of positive things to the moment and the future. It's an example of a program that would benefit from a move to the new Fox Theater headquarters. The Main Street address would make it already popular event grow, as clearly more people would be able to find out about it. I believe that saving the Main Street part of the Fox Theater would be a great investment for the Stevens Point community. Its classic look and great location makes it a great place for community event organizers, craftspeople, musicians, dancers, and artists. Taking the entire building down would be a huge loss for Stevens Point. If the front building was renovated, it would be a dynamic center for everybody, and people would take notice that it is a true local landmark. And to add something a little more freelance here, I was standing in front of the current Create Portage County offices last week, and you could see the top of the Fox Theater from that location. And it's quite impressive actually from a distance. I think a lot of people think of it when they're driving by, but it really, if that was, if it just is cleaned up a little bit, put a little bit of money into it, it'll be a really great place to be. I think that bringing up the fact that some people would rather put money into roads, well, roads fall apart real fast, we know that. You have a pothole, you fill one in May, there's a pothole that comes up across on the other side of the street the next winter. So it's the same kind of situation, except that if you renovate the building, it's going to be a lot more solid than a road. You'll still have to put some more money into it eventually, but it's a positive thing. So think about that. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Matt Vollmer. I live at 6866 6th Street, Stevens Point, 54482 out in Custer. I'm a UWSP alum. My wife and I moved to this area about 15 years ago. Same story. Fox wasn't being used for anything. Always thought it was an awesome building, and I think it's time to actually put it to use and do something with it. I appreciate you guys listening to everything these people have to say. I know it's probably a later night than maybe anyone had anticipated or hoped for. And obviously you have a very tight budget with really difficult decisions to make. And as leaders of this town, I want to thank you and commend you for doing hard work that is really necessary for everyone. I can't tell you that this is the most important project when you're weighing all of the other projects that you have to consider, but I can at least share my story with you in terms of how I've benefited from this and really how that speaks to economic development and retaining young professionals. And maybe that will help you make some difficult decisions. I live in this community. My kids go to schools here. Schools are great. We love the community. And it's a great place to be. But the most difficult part about starting a business and following the American dream is bridging that gap from going from nothing to something. And Create Portage County, especially the Idea Center, helps bridge that gap, especially when you're starting with no dollars, right? You don't have an office, you can't afford an office, you work in coffee shops to use internet because you can't afford internet for your business. And there really aren't a lot of great economic tools to stimulate new business development because it's expensive, right? So you're working a part-time job, you got a side hustle going, you're trying to take care of your family and somehow get a new business off the ground. Meanwhile, you're making too much money to qualify for any other help at the state, federal, or local level. And what do you have for resources? Nothing. And Create Portage County and the Idea Center is a great stepping stone to help businesses go from nothing to a little bit of something to eventually something bigger. And that's why it's really, really important, right? You know, I could talk a lot about how you could stimulate the economy and help new businesses and entrepreneurs get off the ground, but this is a great example. So I work out of the Idea Center, so does one of my software engineers. My company is Arbre Technologies. We're an inventory management system solution company for horticulture-based businesses. I have customers now everywhere from Washington to Texas to Maine to Ontario, Canada. And I run my entire company out of my house in the Idea Center. We won the Hatch Business Pitch Contest, a couple years ago, and I now secured investment capital from Bright Star, Wisconsin, and Winnebago Seed Fund. I've raised $655,000 in capital to date, and I've done that working out of the Idea Center. I had 0 employees last year, and as of January this year, I have 5 employees, 2 of which are UWSP alumni that are making over 6 figures working for my company. Those were jobs that didn't exist. And I've been doing it out of the Idea Center. So I'm trying to give you an idea of some very specific economic development facts. We're a software company, software developers and engineers are in really high demand and they make a lot of money. And we're succeeding as a company. We're growing at over 100% every year. So we're doing some things well. The other great thing about the Idea Center is, it's a place, right? The power was out in my home. I could go to the Idea Center and take a shower and keep my business moving forward and feel good about it. If the Idea Center wasn't there, I would have been this grimy guy on sales calls, just feeling terrible. It was a really nice thing to have a place to do something so simple, right? Go there, make a pot of coffee, take a shower. Really simple stuff. But you also get to network with other businesses. So there's a couple different businesses in the Idea Center that my business now does business with. For example, there's one company in particular. My business is spending $20,000 with that company over the next 12 months. If I hadn't worked at the Idea Center, I never would have met those people and I wouldn't be reinvesting my company's dollars back into the community. So it's a full circle effect when you think of economic development. Again, it's a place to have team meetings. I kind of talked about the full-time positions that we created, and it's just a really great cross-pollination of ideas. So there's a gentleman from the Wisconsin Procurement Institute who works out of the Idea Center. I hadn't even looked at government contracts in my business because I've been too busy with other things. He's been a really great resource in guiding me in looking at government contracts in business. And again, if the Idea Center wasn't there, never would have had that opportunity. So I think you can see investing $250,000, right? My company has raised almost $1 million in the last year. If you invest that amount of money and there's 5 of my companies or 2, the ROI is incredible. 2 employees, 5 employees, 10 employees. If my company alone doubles every year and I create 10 jobs and they all make $100,000 a year, that's 10 full-time employees. I think you can see the numbers. They shake out pretty quickly in terms of the city's investment. So I would ask that, it's a difficult decision. I would ask that the city do participate in this project. I think you'll see a return on investment in this project. I think the economic development value is there, both quantitatively and qualitatively. And best of luck in your decision. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Dawn Brandt, 120 Watkins Court in Stevens Point, Village Whiting. I was introduced to Create when Create was just really starting. They just got this small space downtown. I was looking for something in the community to do, to just be part of, and something bigger, because I wasn't feeling that there was much here for me. I'm a little bit more outward thinking. I have kind of an art background and a love for the arts. I volunteered at, one time, I volunteered at Trivia Unplugged, selling raffle tickets. I worked at Land's End, and she said, hey, we need some volunteers from our company. So I did it, and I had a couple of really good conversations. And through that, I really thought, my goodness, this is a group that's going to do things in our community. This is a group that is thinking the way that I'm thinking, and I didn't meet those people in the community before, and that maybe was my own fault, I don't know. But then as the time progressed, so now next weekend will be, I think, my 4th or 5th trivia unplugged that I'm selling raffle tickets for. I volunteer at a number of Create events, the Draw. I go to a number of the events, the art events. I went to an awesome wine tasting that was historical recently. It was so fantastic and so fun to see when I walk in for that event. All the different little rooms are all being used at capacity. There's people using all of the space. And what a great thing for our community. Not to mention the Levitt Amp concerts. I sell beer tickets. It's my thing. I do it with Miss Paula back there. And the people I have met and the increased participation is immeasurable, really. The people are there. They know they can bring a beverage down. They can bring their lunch down, whatever, to watch some music. Their kids can play. Their dogs can roam. But the idea and the processes come from Create. Those folks come down, they're willing to spend money at the food trucks. They go downtown afterwards and have a drink or go over to Polito's or whatever they might do at that point. And I just find it really bringing community every single week. And now I see the city band concerts are getting a lot more attendance as well on Wednesday nights. So I find that it's become a gathering place, and it would not have been because of the efforts of some of the folks involved in Create to bring more community kinds of things, or the garbage can painting or whatever it might be. There's so many things I can't even tell you, but I have full-heartedly embraced everything Create and what they've done, and I hope you would too. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Matt Williams. I live at 3200 Ellis Street in Stevens Point. I moved here about 2 years ago from Madison. I'm a professional civil engineer, which is what brought me here. I'm not affiliated with Create, but most cool things I've done in the city has been put on by them. But I recently heard about the raise order from my dad. He's on the State Historical Society, and he sent me some of the documents that they're passing around as far as the architectural integrity and stuff like that. And I guess the big point that he pointed out was even, like the Grand Opera House in Oshkosh had a leaky roof. You can make the same argument for that and look at, the national acts that are coming through there. So I think it would be awesome to bring the theater back, but unfortunately, when the city approved the mall to be built in the 80s, the stage was tore down. So it's hard to have a successful theater when you tear the stage down, from what I can understand. So then the business shortly fell after that, and it'd be awesome to see it successful as a theater again, but it sounds like given our demographic and our population, that's not very feasible when it's $15 million to actually renovate it. But I think the biggest mistake would be to tear it down. I mean, I think it's one of the coolest things that I noticed it right away, just coming to point. I was like, wow, Fox Theater, it looks like the Fox Theater in Boulder, or it looks like the Majestic Theater in Madison. It sounds like it used to be even called the Majestic Theater at some point. And Harry Houdini was there. I was just reading about it on Wikipedia. It sounds like it was pretty cool spot, but it seems like tearing it down would just be a big mistake. And it seems like Great Portage County is definitely the best option presented, and everything I've seen them do since being here in 2 years has been awesome. So I would say, please give the money to them. So I guess that's it.
I'm Beverly West. I live at 3340 Whiting Avenue. I've lived in Stevens Point most of my life. I'm probably one of the few in this room who has actually stood on Main Street in a line to buy a ticket to go to the movie on a Friday night. Those were great memories. And I think that we need to retain keeping the Fox Theater. I'm a member of the Portage County Historical Society. I've been a member of that for, I think, 16 years. I'm also a member of Daughters of the American Revolution, and one of our main objectives is historic preservation. We support, we donate, and we encourage people to save buildings and to restore them, not to tear them down. I encourage you to support the Fox, and that they will have the funds to improve it and restore it and not tear it down. Historic preservation is vital to the retaining our heritage and our history. It is environmentally practical to restore a building rather than tear it down. So I do hope that you will consider funding their cause. Thank you.
Good evening. My name's Tom Daling, live at 1908 Main Street. my list is pretty much useless because everybody's covered this stuff through and through and through. So I'd like to try a different approach. Art is hard to put on charts and graphs. So, this is a black and white type of arrangement. Art isn't. Okay, so you got roughly 200,000 to tear it down, roughly 250 to make it usable until they can create more funds. So a little bit more to have something to try, a little bit less to have an empty lot that will probably be nothing more than an empty lot. I am a business person downtown, and our downtown is a fairly thriving area. Businesses come and businesses go, but any day you walk down there, there's people moving about doing things. The Fox has been a blight on downtown for a very, very long time. But it's changing of hands, changing of control is new. So this is not an old idea, this being hammered and hammered and hammered. It's a fresh idea from a crew of some of the really most brilliant, modern thinking people that I've met. If anybody could make this a go, these guys are the ones to do it. Small towns all across the state, all across the country, they tend to collapse because the brighter minds want to move to the city where the great opportunities are. If you allow opportunities to be here, we will keep those people here. The bright ones, the ones that make our society better, more flourishing, more creative, more worthy of living in. Okay? So a lot of money will give nothing other than a pumpkin grin smile on a downtown that people still talk about being a collapsing downtown. I mean, you walk around, people still say it, even though you look around, you see folks everywhere. The mall did its damage, it's gone, okay? This is totally worth your chasing, and I believe these people can do it. The opportunity of the building will present more opportunities than I think even they know at this point. They've got a great start, and they're working out of a makeshift building. People that go to it will also feed our downtown businesses, okay? The more people go, the more our downtown business will flourish. And nothing attracts a crowd like a crowd. You have people going into that it's one of the first buildings that you see when you go downtown. If you arrive to our downtown area, which is shortened because of the Shopco parking lot, you'll see an empty lot if you tear it down, okay? If you let these folks do what to do, they're gonna see a really thriving business as they enter our downtown area, and I think that's the better way to go. So it is a lot of money, and I understand the difficulty of decisions like this, but I think these are the folks to give it a good shot with. I believe they can do it, and will, if you give them a chance.
Hello, my name is Thomas Moberg. I am from 15057 Shoreline Drive, Merrill, Wisconsin. I was a resident of Stevens Point as of up until 5 years ago. Then I moved back home to take care of a dying parent. So I've heard a lot of people talk about retention of students after college, specifically artists. I graduated from UWSP with a Bachelor of Fine Arts in 2D design in May of 2018. And I am one of the students who is now looking back over their shoulder because they've heard about the Fox project. And beyond that, I've been incredibly supported by Create Portage County over my whole 4 years of being a student here. As many of you are duly aware, the budget cuts that hit us pretty much leveled our department and the public face of our department, and the facilities that we had access to were fantastic, but we didn't have access to the same caliber of education, and that was some place where the community stepped in, and specifically Create stepped in, and Greg Wright stepped in. And I have an entire cohort of classmates who, after graduation, immediately set their eyes upon Minnesota and Eau Claire. And it's because they had a platform there. They have evidence for their whole 4 years of comparison between Wisconsin and Minnesota, and education investment and investment in the arts. And then what happens in Stevens Point? You know, we have this empty facade for years and years and years. That is, of course, I mean, it is a blight on the city, but now we have Create Portage County stepping in and potentially making a community space that that we could all step into and really create something with. I mean, the reason that we say that artists starve isn't because they don't make money at what they do. They do make money at what they do, and some of the best money I've ever made has been through Create Portage County and the promotion they've been able to give me in a platform. The reason that we don't have money is because we spend all of our time trying to buy resources for ourselves and trying to invest in platforms for ourselves when there are people out there trying to make them for us. If you let Create Portage County make this platform, if you let them save the Fox, you will have a huge retention of students who graduate and say, Stevens Point is not so bad. Stevens Point has low overhead. I can save my money. I can work on my work. I can work on my art and still exhibit, still push forward as an artist. Minneapolis, Chicago, New York, San Francisco, they're not for me. I'm looking over my shoulder because I have a move to make after this funeral. And if this goes through, Stevens Point is going to look really good. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. Michael Moore, 1024 Buckolt Avenue. Thank you for your consideration tonight. I'm here as an entrepreneur and also a UWSP alumni. I'm also a board member at Create Portage County. I'd like to share two quick stories with you. A few years back, I came upon an idea to turn an observation of a phenomenon I had seen into a device that could help people and that I could build a business model around. As it is with many new ideas, you're not always confident in all the details, but I knew I had to start getting feedback. In passing, I mentioned this idea to Greg Wright, and without hesitation, he said, "You need to do this." And then he said, "What does it take to do this, and how can Create help?" I didn't know it at the time, but this short conversation was ultimately what would make my idea come to fruition in the timeline that it has. With the help of 3D printers at the Idea Center and the expert Barry, I have been able to develop prototypes for testing and participate in local entrepreneurial contests, all while being in a space where my idea feels nurtured and respected. Due to the progress I made at the Idea Center, along with the Hatch events and the support network around it, earlier this year I received a Stage 1 UW Idea Advance grant to continue developing my idea. I couldn't be more excited for the future that this project holds for me, and although I know someday it will move beyond the Idea Center, I will forever be indebted to the effort and the care given to me by Greg Wright and the team at Create. On a separate note, I'd like to share a perspective. I graduated from UWSP in 2010, and as I think it is with many students, you don't always pay close attention to the community where you attend college. I did not plan to stay around Stevens Point, and had it not been for my girlfriend at the time wanting to start the Main Grain Bakery at the callow age of 21, I probably wouldn't be here today. I graduated with an interior architecture degree, and at the time the opportunities for creative professionals in central Wisconsin were slim. I think about myself upon graduation, and I can say with confidence that had the new Fox been established at the time, with its ability to nurture creative professionals, I would not have been so eager to leave. The team at Create has gained my trust and confidence through their actions, and it's this team that has the ability to make a new Fox a meaningful and impactful place for this community. I suggest that you support this idea, and thank you for listening.
Hello, Sarah Jo Moore, 1024 Buchholz Avenue. Create Portage County and the Idea Center has provided numerous events that are at the top of my list when it comes to things to do in Stevens Point. Not only do I enjoy these events personally, but it has given my business, the Main Grain Bakery, much exposure. Our side gig, Toast, was developed when Create gave us the opportunity to be a food vendor at the Levitt Amp concerts. Without that, we wouldn't have had the following that we do, leading to other catering opportunities for weddings and corporate events. For that, I am grateful. Perhaps if the Idea Center was around when I opened the bakery in 2011, it would have been an ideal space to meet, develop a business plan with the support of other entrepreneurs and creatives. The small apartment on Franklin Street worked out just fine. However, what else could have been developed with more like-minded individuals in a vibrant space downtown Stevens Point? As we move forward with the next phase of the Main Grain Bakery, I have the Idea Center to thank as we meet there every other week. With this meeting space, a group of local food businesses were able to plan and create a cooperative to move us in the direction of all working together under one roof in the future. Additionally, I've listened to the podcasts that have been created from the Idea Center. I've been a guest on one of those podcasts that have been formed in that space. I can't imagine what else will come from a new Fox on Main Street. I'm invested in this community and Create Portage County. I can visualize a vibrant gathering space downtown, allowing young professionals like myself to gather, create, and make Stevens Point a place that more people will want to seek out. Thank you.
Good evening. Sarah Brish, representing the Stevens Point Area Convention and Visitor Bureau at 340 North Division. So I really appreciate everyone's testimonials tonight. It's so great to see the diverse uses here at the Idea Center. Like everyone else, as the Executive Director of the Stevens Point Area Convention and Visitor Bureau, I urge the city to approve this $250,000 ask with an additional $250,000 upon construction start. What the CVB is most excited about is really the alternative venue space that this facility offers. As part of our strategic plan that's guided by the city, the village, and the county, it is very important that we continue to attract groups to this region. The Stevens Point area has been working very, very hard attracting and bringing more events, workshops, and groups to the region to be a part of this community and really to create a long lasting economic benefit to the community. Visitors coming into the region for events, workshops, and group gatherings contribute hugely to the economic well-being of Portage County. In 2018, travelers spent $135.4 million in travel expenditures. Much of that was related to group business. Having an alternative venue of this scope, especially downtown, would be a completely different offering that's currently being offered in the region. A more conscious approach to tourism development projects like this will have a positive economic benefit to the area, driving more visitors to the region and causing more travelers to spend nights in our hotels and to dine in our restaurants, to shop in our local shops. And according to the Wisconsin Department of Tourism, visitors spend $58 per day when they're in the community, and when they overnight, $180 per visitor. Additionally, the new Fox project will provide aspiring entrepreneurs the space and resources they need in addition to launch their business. The retention of these citizens in the area is really going to help the long-term success of the community. Since launching in 2016, as Greg mentioned earlier tonight, the Create Idea Center has impacted over 50 businesses, many of which really impact the tourism vitality in this community, including things like TAPS, Agra, Assembly, and others. So again, I wish that the city of Stevens Point would consider this $500,000 investment into our community. Thank you.
Zach Stringer, 1329 Michigan Avenue. I am a co-founder of video production here in town. I'm in the process of starting a cocktail consulting company as well. I've been a user at the Idea Center for quite a while. We help run the video studio there, as well as keep it equipped with some of the more up-to-date equipment that is needed. Having interest in video production and craft cocktails, I didn't really think that I was going to stay in the area after I graduated. I was thinking about Minneapolis, as mentioned before, or maybe even Boston, big aspirations, until I met Greg and was introduced to the Idea Center. It was the first time, or one of the first times in Stevens Point, that I felt like it was asking me to stay and was investing in me. And all of a sudden, I'm a business owner and created a Super Bowl commercial for Stevens Point Brewery, which was kind of like, what? And have been able to hire out not only videographers, but also actors from the community for various projects, which has been a really cool thing, because I know they were in a very similar situation, wondering if they're going to stay or go. And I know that I'm not the only person. Every day that I go and work at the Idea Center, I'm inspired by so many men and women who we have heard from tonight, who are doing the same thing. And what's really cool and neat about that is there's such a diverse skill set that we're able to support each other and keep it local. Since I started, Craig Portage County was like a small room, maybe two, and then it's doubled in size, but I know it's not permanent, and the user base is growing, and so we do need a new space. And I'm asking for your support and consideration for the new Fox, because I truly believe that it is an investment in us, your community, your growing community, and I know that we will invest back to Stevens Point. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Jim Featherston. I'm the president and CEO of Warzala Publishing here in town, and I've also spent the last 5-ish years, could be 6, I can't remember, on the board of the Fox Theater, and it's the effort that we've been trying to do to come up with an idea of what to do with that space. And I'm here to tell you that we have looked at just about every avenue that could be done with that space over the last few years. We've done the economic modeling. A theater does not work. That's what we started out thinking we might be able to do. The research absolutely showed that was not the right direction to go. So I have to tell you that I think, but there's really 2 things I'd like to leave with you. The first thing is this space, I think the highest and best use of this space is for the extension and the development of CREATE, or the Idea Center for CREATE. I think that's a great use of that space. And I'll tell you, as a business leader in the community, a major employer in this community, we have to do everything we can to attract people to our community. As you all know, unemployment is at record lows right now. As an employer, it's not easy to find people. This is an absolute magnet that will draw people to our community. The other thing that I would like to leave with you, it was stated earlier by Greg, is help those of us who are in the position of business leadership in this town, help us make the contributions that are needed to make this thing go. The city has to stand behind this. And if you do, I think the business community will rally. And I think that amount of money that we've talked about tonight, $3.5 million, will flow. But the city's got to go first. Thank you for listening to me.
I'm Danny Werhusky, 200A Washington Avenue. I'm an organic farmer. I work in a cooperative of other farmers. I'm also sit on various boards in and outside of agriculture in the community. I grew up in Stevens Point. In 1990, I was born here. Went to high school here. Went to UWSP, graduated in 2014 with an English degree. And was considering leaving the area in order to go to grad school or pursue a different career path in a larger city, specifically Milwaukee or Minneapolis. But when I found my true calling as far as gardening and farming, I was able to meet with like-minded folks and plan a way we could do so and continue doing what we loved to do in an economically feasible way. And we met to synthesize that organization at the Idea Center, and that required many, many, many conversations, especially doing it in a cooperative context. So we were meeting there multiple times a week. The Idea Center gave us the opportunity, the resources to not only organize ourselves, but organize ourselves and situate ourselves within the community. I've known growing up here that the Fox has been empty for years and years and years, and there's been many attempts to try to revitalize it. So I think that just knowing what I know about what Greg and the Idea Center and Create Portage County has done to spur not only entrepreneurship but arts in the community and really make it a draw for people that I've seen stay in town because of businesses and opportunities that were put forth by Create Portage County, and to see the Fox being empty my entire life and knowing that those two could come together and really revitalize a historical building for us in a smart way for our community, I think is very important. It's an investment that's going to have a return, and if you do nothing, it will not have a return. And so I think you should consider it. Thanks.
Hello, my name is Pong Vang, 2949 Minnesota Avenue. Been a resident here for almost 30 years. Kind of emotional, but also really happy to get to connect with the Idea Center. They have provided myself and my the Hmong community a space to be cultural engaged. And this year was the first year that we have our Hmong enrichment class at the Idea Center. And this past weekend, my daughter did her first Hmong dance at the Hmong Pre-New Year. So I want to extend my support in the Hmong community to support the Fox project. And I saw that, and I also know that since last year, Create Portage have helped 2 of the Hmong business to be in the local area. We also have brought a lot of Hmong professionals throughout the state, and we do a lot of meeting and networking at Idea Center too. So I would like to, for all of you to support this new project too. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Ty Moore, 2949 Minnesota Avenue. And being here is actually really important it's really important because I'm missing my son's football game in the field right now. But making sure this happens to me is very important. Investing money in this project is not just investing money in a building, it's actually investing in community. I came to Stevens Point in 2004 from Madison, was kind of depressed because I was really looking for a community. I was looking for a place to belong, and it wasn't until I finally found Create that I finally found community. I found a community that I was looking to build. I've just had the opportunity to witness the fruit of this relationship and what Create has done for me this past weekend. So I came to Create, started attending the eye-to-eye meetings that is held at Create. And through that, I've made great friends, and I've built family. And through one of these relationships, we were able to learn about what each other's skills were. And through this past weekend, I was able to see what these relationships have brought to my community. One of the friends I met through Create built a mochi maker for our Hmong New Year this past weekend. And it was the first time in my community that I've witnessed the elders teach the young folks how to make mochi traditionally. It was the first time that I've seen them teach community and come together and laugh. And when I saw the faces of the elders and heard the laughter of the youth making mochi, I am reminded of how grateful I am for the relationships that were built through Create. And so I think as everyone talks about the economic impacts that Create has, I want you all to know about the personal impacts that Create has created. And I know that Stevens Point, the city, has a resolution in support of inclusive and safe communities. And I believe that it's time for the city to act upon that resolution and not have empty resolutions, and actually investing in Create and investing in space for communities to feel safe in. That's where that resolution where y'all can act on that resolution. So I'm going to hold you up to acting on that resolution and also investing in many more impacts and many more stories like this by investing in Create and investing in an inclusive community. Thank you.
My name is Jim Radford, 404 Virginia Drive, Stevens Point. I'm here tonight as a resident of the area and also as a consultant who did some work on the feasibility study that was done beginning last year. My wife and I moved here from New Jersey 30 years ago with our 5 kids to raise them with our 6 cousins because of the quality of life of this area, and we've never been disappointed. As a consultant, I'm asking you tonight to consider the Create proposal part of a solution to your budgeting problem, because this is really an economic development problem or project that will solve some of these budgeting problems for your other necessities. So this is really an economic development project. My company, Baker Street Consulting, was hired by the board of directors of Create Portage County, and we were hired basically to test the idea of raising $6 million to restore the Fox Theater. We started off by interviewing people in the area, and it became pretty obvious that that was not going to happen. It was just not a popular idea. And somewhere during all of those interviews, and by the way, we included over 80 people in the study process. Most of the big employers of the area were included. Many of the nonprofits were included. People on the street were included. So it was a very comprehensive study, and my firm has done over 130 feasibility studies. And it was one of the larger populations of people we ever had in a study. But what we found was the $6 million to restore the Fox just wasn't going to happen. And during the process of the studies, the urgency to create something more creative, more doable, more lasting became very obvious. And so as we talked with people, the idea of saving not the Fox, but retaining the facade and the historic, wonderful tradition that it represents was the way to go. And so there was never really an attempt to save the Fox. It was never about the Fox. It was always about the Idea Center. And that was one of the first questions I asked the board when I was hired is this about the Fox or is this about the Idea Center? And they said very resoundingly, it's about the Idea Center. So I thought you might like to know that it was never about saving the Fox, really. The idea now is what's called Facade Preservation. You might like to know that it's a movement going on all over the country. We just checked out 3 in New Orleans that are going up right now. So it's a popular idea to save facade of a historic, iconic building, but do something more creative, like build a 2-story, high-energy efficient building right behind it that will cost $3.5 million to complete instead of $6 million. So I urge you to consider this as a real investment that will return your wise decision many times over in the years ahead. Thank you very much for your thoughtful consideration.
Melissa Hack, 1516 Brawley Street in Stevens Point. Thank you so much for listening to all of us. As you can tell by the sheer number of people, we are really excited about the impact that we think the Idea Center can make in our community. As an active community member and artist, I support the use of this city funding and hope you can consider to begin the construction for a new Fox Theater, or more or less a Fox Theater that's more like the Idea Center. Having the Idea Center as a resource has allowed me the space for creative endeavors I thought I would have to move to a bigger city for. Just like 5 people have already said here, and we're 5 people that are willing to come up here. That means there's many, many more people that, didn't have the guts to come up here. Having the space to host meetings, host poetry open mics, and participating in the Trash Can Mural Project have helped me further my artistic and professional aspects of my life. Knowing that our city supports a bigger and better space for such endeavors makes me feel like putting deep roots and continuing to volunteer my time and energy in this unique community. Thank you so much.
Hi, I'm Emma Keel, 4516 Terrace Lane. Like so many other people, I'm a recent college graduate of UWSP and definitely didn't expect myself to still be in this community, but the creative atmosphere, much of what Creative Portage County is behind is the reason I'm still here. But one thing that has really been on my mind lately with our world is the phrase, I'm not sure who said it first, but if it is not accessible to the poor, it is neither radical nor revolutionary. I come from a town where there is a lot of talk about community enrichment, but much of that enrichment only happens within one section of the economic scale. But spaces like this, investing in spaces like this, they're accessible, they're open and inclusive to people of all economic backgrounds, and that is really what's going to strengthen this community. And that's really something that you can invest in and something that will make this community radical and revolutionary. Thank you.
Hi everyone, Katrina Shanklin, 5782 Sandpiper Drive. You might know me as a state representative, but I'm also here because I strongly support the Idea Center's work and their long-term impact on our community. One of the things that I've talked about a lot since I've been elected and that I've heard from a lot of employers and folks across the city and county and region is the importance of workforce development and attraction. We all know and have heard about the workforce shortage, but how many people know that 99% of CEOs surveyed across the United States have said that cultural offerings in a community are one of the greatest reasons why they are able to recruit people to their employment opportunities. Create Portage County doesn't just add vibrancy to our community, they're constantly innovating, problem solving, bringing people together, and connecting people that have the best possible ideas. And I've seen tremendous economic growth in small businesses and collaboration across industries and sectors since Create has really been jump-started over the last few years. I don't even think I need to list the examples because you've heard from so many of them today. But when I look at our region and the future of our region and how we tend to compete with Appleton and the Fox Valley, we tend to compete with Eau Claire and La Crosse, we compete with Green Bay, I think about strategically our long-term vision. And other cities and counties have developed strategic plans that include the importance of the creative economy. They've actually sat down and quantified the creative economy. The creative economy across Wisconsin equates to about $10 billion in revenue and over 100,000 jobs. And that just includes some of the folks you've heard from Create Portage County today. It doesn't include all the supply chain. I think it's important to recognize as we look forward in the city and county that there are a tremendous number of people who came today to talk about the future of the Idea Center, and regardless of where it's placed or how much money you invest in it, it's going to be there. But the question is, what's the city's role? You've heard from a few business owners who said if the city invests money, perhaps the county will, perhaps the state will. I completely agree with that. I think that that confidence in the project is really important to its funding. If you look at successful projects like the Confluence Center, which I've toured over in the Eau Claire region, that was a public-private partnership funded by the city, county, and state. The state actually kicked in $15 million. If you look over at Wisconsin Rapids, the Encourage Foundation just got a $3 million grant from the state, and that was because they were able to leverage a significant amount of private donors and the confidence of the local government in order to get that money. So I understand budgets, I really do. So what I'd encourage you to do is look at any opportunity to partner with the county, any opportunity to partner with local businesses, but recognizing that your confidence, your vote of confidence in the project and in keeping Create Portage County downtown will not only boost tourism, entrepreneurship, and economic development, it'll also send a strong message to students here that they should stay, like we've heard from others, that we're investing in the creative economy, that we're committed to growing cultural opportunities for everyone in the county and region, and that we're also committed to a long-term strategic vision that isn't just about the music opportunities, the cultural opportunities, the art opportunities, but also investing in each other. And that's what I believe Create Portage County is really about. It's about growing confidence in each other, building each other up, creating not only new businesses, but growing new ideas, and a lot of cross-pollination is occurring as a result of that, whether you heard from folks who've been in each other's podcasts, who are growing each other's businesses together. There's a lot of tremendous things happening, and I have to say, as a young person who decided to live in Stevens Point because I love it, whose friends have all moved away and look back and say, wow, Stevens Point got really cool. I'm like, yeah, that wasn't a coincidence. It was not a coincidence. It was created over time by a lot of people investing in each other. And so what I'd encourage you to do is think creatively. I know that sounds a little bit cheesy, but there are always financing options available, especially if you choose to partner with other governments. And as someone who's been looking on the state level, that's something that I'm committed to as well, because I saw the benefit of the Confluence Project in Eau Claire and the tremendous amount of businesses who invested locally in the downtown there after they got city, county, and state funding too. So I appreciate the work that you do. I know how difficult it can be, but I'm really glad to see so many people here tonight who understand that this is about the long-term vision for our city, our county, and our region. I'm constantly proud of Stevens Point. I'm constantly proud of this region, and I think this project will be one more feather in our cap. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Angela Schenk. I live at 3015 Birch Street. That is in the village of Whiting. I always feel bad for the speakers that have to follow Katrina, and I guess I'm that person tonight. So I just wanted to state my support for this cause for sort of a plethora of reasons. I am a former staff member of Create, and I am now I am currently a business owner. I launched my own business in February of this year. And like some of the younger people we've heard from today, that didn't think Stevens Point was the greatest place to be. I didn't either, and after I graduated from UWSP, I did fly the coop, so to speak. And I didn't actually have a plan to come back. Circumstances in life did bring me back home, however, and I wasn't planning on staying until I started engaging with the work that Create does. First through its programming, then as a staff member, and now as an entrepreneur and a user of the Idea Center. So the impact that Create has had on the community, both for me the impact that Create has had for me and the community, I've gotten to see from both sides, working internally and from the other side of the table. And we used to joke that the current location is the hardest to find 3-story building in the city of Stevens Point. And then you switch that out with the work that the organization is doing and all of the successes that it's had. You change that out with the most visible building in downtown Stevens Point. And I just can't fathom the impact that the organization is going to continue to have. One of the really awesome things I've been able to do is lead a cohort of female entrepreneurs out of the space. The Idea Center has provided us with a space to meet and collaborate and launch businesses. Multiple businesses that started as ideas, just napkin ideas in that room, have since become reality. And I think with increased access and visibility with the new Fox, you're going to see a lot more of them. So I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Hi, thanks for your patience. My name is Tom Corcoran. My address is 5464 Windy Drive. I'm the director of a nonprofit leadership organization, Heartland Leadership Initiative, and we are part of the Portage County Business Council Foundation, one of their leadership arms. And I've been involved with Greg and Create. We'll help put the podcast studio together, but also we have roundtables, 6 to 8 groups around the city that meet every week around leadership principles, and many of our groups meet out of the Create space. We've had some great collaboration with Zach and video and other things with the podcasting and tying in other things that I've been able to help multiple businesses start with that podcasting studio, getting their message off the ground with that. So it's been a wonderful collaborative space. And one of the challenges that one of the favorite quotes I have in leadership, and I appreciate all of your leadership in our community, is that management is responsible to do things right. Leadership is responsible to do the right things. And I just appreciate your consideration for this wonderful cause. Thank you.
Andrea Olson, 410 Franklin Street. So I'm torn with this because I grew up here. I used to walk past the Fox. It was never open when I was there, and I loved it. And I wanted to, like, my best friend and I, we just wanted to go in there and be able to watch movies and have fun and play in there. However, then I left, went to college, came back 12 years later, and I'm a small business owner. I have grown my business in the past 5 years, and I understand how much space a business takes to be run in. For something where you have lasers or 3D printers or high-end, you get a CNC, you get all these types of things. And my biggest concern is that this space is not large enough. It's good enough for the short term, because if you look at it, the lot size is only 56 by 152, which is only 6 feet wider and 27 feet deeper than your standard city lot. So if you're building on that, you're doing your 2 stories, which gives you about 17,000 square feet. Divide that by 12, and then take out your outside spaces in there. So you've got to get rid of the space that's going to be open for the stairwell. Then you get rid of your outdoor space on the first floor and your outdoor space on the second floor. That leaves you with about 9,930 square feet of usable space. A maker space or a hack space per user is supposed to have about 100 to 150 square feet per user. That would end up being about only 99 members could be there, which that's not a lot of members. And if you look at what Create's been comparing themselves to or wanting to model after, T-Rex, which is a business incubator, which is it has large established businesses within that facility. Then they have smaller businesses that are also being incubated in there. That couldn't fit in the Fox. Then if you look at the next one, the Idea Foundry, that's 50,000 square feet. Then you look at, and that's a maker space with workspace and entertainment space. We look at WeWork, which that was another one that was compared on the flyer. That's actually a company that does build-outs all around the world. So they're a rental company that will build out the spaces for what you want for your business. It's no different than any other rental company, except they focus more so on business or incubators and makerspace stuff. The also influence for the space is Collectivo Backroom, which that's a coffee shop with a band space like MEJ's, but just larger. It's not a hack space either. Apollo Shop is a 150-person theater, and they focus mostly on music, video, and media, which is one of the big focuses for Create. And then you look at the Refuge. It's an old monastery on 11 acres in Appleton, and they do a lot of big events, just like Create's been doing for the concerts and things like that. So my concern is that they're asking, they give them the money, but not for this space. Is it really worth giving $500,000 for the nostalgia of saving a facade? I love the facade, but is that the best use of the money? I think that we've talked about having missing teeth downtown. It doesn't have to be a missing tooth. That building, if it has to come down, it comes down. You put grass in there until you find somebody that wants to build right there. You put up some nice fencing, put a deck in there. Use that for another outdoor space for concerts, for bar overflow. If somebody wants to have a wedding reception there, utilize the space for concerts, for art installations, and that type of stuff instead of just letting it sit there. But we're looking at $500,000, and then for the total is $3.5 million. The National Wellness Institute's for sale, it might have just sold, that's 15,000 square feet, and they were asking $399,000. If you look at Jim Lob's across the street, that's 12,820 square feet. The total value for that space right now, at least the assessed value, is $386,300. You're building a $3.5 million building across the street. If something happens and you have to try and sell it down the line, you're never going to get your return there. But Jim Lob's, if somebody's going to retire, that's a big, nice building that buy it for $600,000. You have a couple million then for renovations if you'd want to sell. Or then you can look at even Chase Bank down the street. That's 67,000 square feet with a great view. That's only valued at $2.4 million. That would be a beautiful space, again, if you could get them to sell it. Or trying to build over on Crosby Avenue. That space is going to become available after they finish all the testing and figure out what type of remediation has to occur. So when you're looking at all of this all together, I'm a small business owner. I'm an artist with an MBA, so my mind is constantly clashing. I think everything that Create's done, the Idea Center, my nieces go there for Tinker Time, it's wonderful. Give them the money for something, but I don't think it should be for this project, because after you build, how are you going to grow? You only have, in the plan, it has 4 office spaces that are ones that you can rent out to people to work in. If you're going to be a true business incubator, I'm taking my computer there, I'm working there, wait, I cannot sit in this coffee area anymore, it's too loud, I need someplace to sit. They don't have offices set up to rent out. If you want to be a business incubator, rent out the offices. Have lockers for people to be able to leave their stuff overnight so then you come in the next day to use them. Have enough space to be able to have your 3D printer. Your laser then gets in there. Your laser can't be in the same room as your 3D printer because of static. You have to then figure out your ductwork and build on. Wait, you can't build on because you have no more space. Why not look at Shopko? The city owns a Shopko lot. They can't use that one? Never mind.
We don't know.
Oh, I thought, I have it tagged, I have the printout right here that says that the redevelopment authority has it. But, okay, fine, I lied. And the online, GIS lied. Get your maps right now. But there are lots of spaces and lots of opportunities out there. I think it should definitely stay downtown, But that location, after you spent $3.5 million, are you going to be able to ask again for more money to build someplace else? Because you've grown so much, you've helped the community so much, that now you need a bigger space. It's not going to be able to happen there. Thanks. Sorry, don't kill me.
Monica Anderson, 2968 Boy Scout Lane. I'm a CREATE board member and a concerned citizen. The question I'm asking you tonight is the city supporting this? That's the question that's constantly asked of me when I'm talking about our capital campaign. Are you willing to support the downtown area with new businesses and this building? And remember that will be several businesses that are going to be started from this building and growing and going elsewhere. Are you able to continue to support the community and show that you are truly partnering with the community by helping create a new Fox? Short and sweet. Help us. Thank you.
Warren Jacobson, 1579 Church Street. I came to this community mostly because of connections that we had with some area farmers and opportunities to access land, and it didn't have much to do with Stevens Point. But coming from living in the Fox Valley and having grown up in Madison, there are parts of urban living that remain important to me, even as I've committed to a part of my life being agrarian. And I'll say farming is really hard. That's a common phrase. And as we started here on rented land, and yet living here in the city of Stevens Point and commuting out to Custer, I worked really hard. I'm not very old, and I felt it in my tendons and my bones and my muscles. And when we got to the point of asking ourselves the question, are we going to stick with this, to go full time and to make what is a below average at best income that can be made from starting a farm without the benefit or privilege of a generation before you giving you wealth? The question was, not like this, definitely not. And so we had to ask ourselves the question whether we were going to stay here. And I think in the last few years, a lot of the farms that we connected to that brought us to the community in the first place, they've opted out and decided not to continue on this difficult endeavor of trying to see if we have a new generation of agriculture. And we've had a slightly different path and opportunity, because in deciding to live here in Point and trying to break into some of the existing culture and make friends and make connections, we lucked out in connecting with the Idea Center. I remember this post that went out that my partner talked with me about. They were going to clean up this new space. It was going to be like a co-working space or something. And I was like, oh, that might be interesting, but let that slide. But it was those meetings with people, the ability to swipe that card and have a meeting 24/7 that allowed us to now over and over and over again bring together community members, people that we've met here, and to create the things that now root us in this community and will keep us here for a long time. So we purchased the land 2 years ago, and we're committed. We purchased our home, and we're committed, and we did that because of the relationships that we've developed here. And too many of those relationships have started at the Idea Center. Now, I studied mathematics in undergraduate, and I like to talk about the connections with people on a graph theory basis. How many steps do you have to take to get from you, the people you talk to other people in your organization? And I think that extends on a community scale. How many steps apart are we? Now, when you start a business at home, which I have done, I'm too many steps away from almost everybody else. When I do my business work at the computer, I can look out the window and see a few number of people walk by. I step out on my porch, and in all likelihood, the only person that's going to talk to me is Roger. But when I go to the Idea Center, every single time, even late at night, I'm going to meet someone and make a connection. And that's continued from the very first time that we utilized the space to now almost every day of the week that we find some reason to be there. And those connections, they don't just benefit the businesses that we've started.
They aren't just the basis that allows us to continue to farm and be successful, owning land and continuing the agrarian part of our lifestyle, but they are also the connections that build the very social fabric that makes us want to be here in the first place. Now, I also was born out in Vernon County, and there's a little town there called Viroqua. And it's very interesting to me, and it has been, knowing Viroqua from the standpoint of someone who is a part of that community and has been for a long time, and then knowing its reputation. And in the local food industry and people in local food, Viroqua has this wild reputation as a mecca. And I know that, to be frank, it's a town like a lot of other towns. But when you talk to people, they say, oh, have you been to Viroqua? You know all the things that are going on out there. And people go there to that tiny little town to be a part of that. And so what I didn't hear enough of tonight is really talk about what Create is doing for the reputation of this community and how that's going to extend into the future and influence people who haven't really thought about Stevens Point at all, influence their future. And so lastly, to talk about my future, I'm going to graduate from UW-Madison Law School this coming May. And I have available to me opportunities for six-figure incomes across this entire country. There is no doubt about that. And so what keeps me here in the face of those opportunities is this social fabric. And yet I will still go to Milwaukee, where most of the friends that I have from college now reside. And I will go to St. Paul, where friends from college reside. And I might even, unfortunately, find myself going to some of those other big cities all across this country, where pretty much everybody I know from college decided to go. And the conversations I have with them about my life, that is the real and practical way that that reputation will build, so that there's a future that I foresee and I know that Create is at the center of building for this community, where the people know Stevens Point and people know that it is a place with a reputation as a good place to live, with opportunities to be creative and to live a life that is more valuable than a higher income that I could grab by basically slaving away in a place that's bigger and more popular. So if we want to build that reputation, we've got to make these investments, and we've got to make them now. And the investments that are necessary in roads and in the basic infrastructure, they come because we're willing to live here and pay for them. And the taxes that I will continue to pay for a long time living in this community are going to pay for those roads. But I want to know whether you'll commit to that reputation that is going to allow me to bring my friends and my peers to this community as well, and to grow it in a very healthy and direct way through the conversations and relationships that we all have with people across this state and elsewhere. So once again, I would hope that you make this decision, and even if there's a future where Create needs to grow, I would hope the city's at that table again at that point. $500,000 is not very much in the scheme of things, and the impact on my businesses and my life alone, I think, are well worth it. And I know that beyond this room today, there are a lot of people who I've personally seen and met at Create that didn't have the opportunity to show up here today. And their lives are impacted, and the impact that they have in this community will continue possibly for generations. Thank you.
My name is Amber Hayter. I am living at 2217 Sims Avenue here in Stevens Point. I'm currently a student at the university. I'm entering my senior year. I'm from the local area, the Wausau area, but I came to Stevens Point not only because I saw something special in the campus community, but I saw something special in the broader Stevens Point community at large. And so as a student of both arts management and history, myself and my peers were very passionate about this project and about this community and about arts and community and education, arts, education, and community engagement in this community. And so I wasn't going to come to this community meeting today, and I wasn't going to speak, but after talking to several of my peers today, I realized that this is something that the students here in the community really do care about. I've had the opportunity to have Greg come and speak to my arts management class about his work at Create Portage County. And in terms of this organization, it's provided us arts management students and students more broadly in the campus a really awesome opportunity to see arts, education, and community engagement at work in our community and seeing how it's bettering our lives. As a student of history, I can honestly say that Last spring, I had an amazing opportunity to do a historical tour of downtown with some members of the Historical Society. And something that was reiterated a lot is though we have amazing murals of buildings that existed at one point, historical buildings, in our downtown, those murals don't replace the actual sense of place and the sense of place those buildings provided that are no longer there. So I guess I encourage you all to really support this project, support the work they're doing in maintaining a historical facade, and support the work that Create Portage County is doing to better the community, because the students care and the students are watching what's happening in our community. Thank you.
Makira Zarazua. I'm the 4th District Alderperson, and I'm sure you were wondering, where is Trevor? So I have a letter here. One of my constituents, Trevor Rourke, 601 Washington Avenue. Dear Alder Zarazua and the Finance Committee, I apologize I cannot attend tonight as I'll be home making dinner for me and my fam. The downtown is the heart of Stevens Point, and the old Fox Theater used to be a cornerstone of our local bustling market center. It's impossible to bring back the same positive history that followed since 1894, but a new vision is instilled through Create Portage County. The plan to save and revitalize this space into a new community hub for innovation and creativity, as presented by Create Portage County, is one of the most resilient developments the city has seen proposed in the last 2 decades. Create has shown due diligence in addressing the innovative, collaborative, and business needs of our local community, and amplifying this effect through a new Fox would bring much needed return on investment. And I am referring to past investment the city has taken on, as well as future investment the Finance Committee should recommend tonight. I support a new Fox and strongly recommend that the Finance Committee and Common Council do as well. Thank you for your consideration, Trevor Rourke. And I just want to say, I mean, I know this is a huge ask, or it feels like it, especially given what we just heard from Corey as far as finances. I know you'll get to it, but I think the people at home will want to hear like what can be done with money as far as how we can afford this. I know the letter from the mayor talked about the possibility of where that money could come from, so I know you'll get to it after the testimony, but that's the question I have. Thank you.
Wow. This is why I'm here. You always ask me why I'm here. Bob Finn, I'm here as a department head. I cannot disagree with anything that was said tonight. I hope they raised the money. I think the Idea Center is a great idea. But as a department head, I want to talk to the city council about taking money out of city capital. Corey talked about tonight about putting new assets and possibility of raising taxes to have that in the capital. Part of my budget is capital because it's ongoing. It cannot go in the operating budget because of the way the levy limits are. Everything that we put in to advance the fire department was cut out of capital because the money's not there. We're just maintaining. And I understand that. We can only borrow so much money. Everything that was said tonight, I don't disagree with. But I can't see the city council voting to give somebody money, and I don't know where the money's going to come from. If it comes out of a TIF district, you're going to have competing ideas or competing projects from that TIF district and take away from that. If it comes out of capital, every department head in this that was in at this meeting tonight is going to have to cut back $250,000 this year and $250,000 next year. We had $11 million worth of requests for this year or something like that. So I don't disagree with Create Portage County and Idea Center. All I'm asking you as a department head is we are just keeping our head above water. We're not doing anything to expand the departments. And as a fire department, services for this city are increasing. We don't have the manpower. We don't have the equipment. I urge you to support the department so we can give the service that the citizens of Stevens Point deserve. Thank you.
Tori Jennings, Alder, District 1. This is one of those decisions where city council, there's no good decisions, and every decision feels awful. Of course, I support everything that Create has done and is doing.
However, a few questions I guess I have. Does Create have to be there? Create is not, as I see it, is not the Fox Theater. But I also do want to make clear that as somebody who is not only on historic preservation but cares deeply about historic buildings, I've always advocated for saving that facade, and no matter what. So I just want to make that clear. But some things that I'm sort of confused about or uneasy about, I guess, is there's sort of two things going on here. There's the building, and to save that or to save it to what extent, and then there's Create. Those are not, as I see it, one and the same thing. However, I could ask the question, if Create is not the Fox Theater, is Create Greg Wright? I mean, does Create exist without Greg Wright? I don't know the answer to that either. But some questions that I have that Comptroller, Treasurer, I hope you will address. Is this, at least the first $250,000, is that a TIF incentive? And if it is or is not, if you could explain that, because I guess I'm a little bit edgy about this, because perhaps some of the people here tonight, or at least friends of people here tonight, they have been some of the most vociferous critics of this council for TIF incentives in the downtown. So I'm having trouble reconciling some of that. And just these two different things are not the same thing. But at the end of the day, I know every alder on this council agonizes over these kinds of decisions because we can't do everything. And this, at the end of the day, what council does is have to approve a budget, and every year the budget stinks, and there's no good decisions. So anyway, good luck.
Scott Badun, Director of Public Works. I'm definitely speaking at the wrong time because I'm going to essentially reiterate just what the last two speakers have said, both Chief Finn and Alder Jennings. I guess I myself question the correlation issue between the Fox and Create and whether they are indeed one and the same, or whether that's the best use of money. And I'll leave it at that. The other part, going to what Chief Finn had identified, and to give you an idea of the quantitative portion of this, is to get the budget to balance this year. I needed to remove a little over a half-mile of road reconstructions that had been scheduled years in advance, because the rising costs of construction just don't allow it to work within our capital borrowing limits. That's probably going to continue. So again, I just have to ask, is this really the best use of the city's money? I definitely want Create to succeed. From all that I've heard, just these wonderful things, it seems like they shouldn't have much of an issue doing that on their own. With their popularity, with the support they have, I just don't think it's the city's position to do that in and amongst everything else that needs to be done, just in the basic functions to serve the city, the public good. So, thank you.
And it looks like I'm last and not exactly sure why, but Chief Skiba, Stevens Point. Again, I think a lot of great points have been made to this group today. From a police officer's perspective, the more we can provide wonderful things for our youth to be doing and to grow into and bring our community together, obviously reduces my workload, and that's a great thing. Welcome it. My wife teaches art, and I get it. This is a great opportunity. The concept. I don't know about the location. That's something more from Create, and this overall council is going to have to decide where best it provides growth and opportunity. But much like the other department heads have spoke about, this council has been very supportive, brought the police department into this facility. We know this facility has needs, had needs prior to getting here. The roof is one of those. That has been pushed back for a couple of years again. Understandably, there are only so many dollars. But how many things do we kind of push off and need to push off to maintain a budget? Every department's fleets have changed, have gotten longer and longer, creating other issues. Understandably, a request for the garage to secure our property, again, I understand there's only so many dollars working with the treasurer and mayor, so holding off that request this year. But again, understand that there's a lot of conversations at the department head level with the treasurer, with the mayor about how do we work with the dollars we have and still support the community. I am thankful that this is not one of my decisions, but we all have to make hard decisions. As department heads, we have to make them, we have to triage our budgets. Similarly, you have to as well. I think we need to support this idea in ways, whether it's helping support and getting, whether it's Portage County or others. I hear about other state entities, so to speak, or local government weighing in. I honestly haven't heard that, there's a commitment of X from Portage County, that there's a commitment from the Business Council, from, state grants already, so we should be the first one in, and yet we're one of the smaller entities to be able to afford it. So, good luck. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we'll go back to well, thanks everybody for all your testimony, and we'll take that in consideration.
Mr. Chair.
People on the committee.
Yeah, I had been asked to read a couple of submittals to add to this. The first one I'll do on behalf of Ann Vang, who is a school board member, and back of the room right now. She resides at 2228 Madison Street in Stevens Point. My name is Ann, and I have lived in Stevens Point for nearly 34 years. I never knew what Create Portage County was until early 2017. We were introduced to the folks at Create have built more than just a relationship, we have built a family. Create Portage County doesn't just provide space for folks to complete work out of, they are here to support the community in every possible way. We hold quarterly meetings there among dance practices that also serve as support group training and many other things. Create was also partner for Hmong Week 2019. Without Create, I would have never met Vinnie Moresi, and without Vinnie Moresi, our Hmong New Year's celebration wouldn't have been as successful. You see, Vinnie, and this is, Ty had mentioned this, Vinnie carved a traditional mochi machine out of wood and 2 mallets. The attendees at the New Year's celebration were super excited, and I got to see this because it was an amazing celebration. That's me, not Ann talking there. That was, it had such an amazing time reminiscing how they used to make mochi for the new year. I wish all could have seen the joy this piece brought to my people, to Stevens Point. I agree with that, Ann. I think more people should have seen that. I support the Fox, and I believe the city should as well. With Create relocating to the Fox, that will bring businesses to downtown families and bring it closer to the bus line for those who utilize it. I know I use the Idea Center quite frequently, and I get hungry and am looking for a coffee all the time while I'm there. You see, I spend more than 30 minutes at a time at the Idea Center with the space and inviting atmosphere. I can spend the entire day there completing work and know that I'll get things done. Many people use the facility, and the Fox would accommodate the number of folks who need the space to work, practice, and play. Please support the Fox. That's Ann Vang. I believe she's in my district, actually. The other is from Vinnie Morasi, 10086 6th Avenue, Stevens Point. He's a county board supervisor for District 1, my colleague on county board. The power of good ideas is what propels Stevens Point and Portage County through the 21st century. The power of good ideas will keep central Wisconsin relevant in our great state. The power of good ideas will make Stevens Point and Portage County an economic proliferation throughout our community. Create Portage County and the Idea Center has made ideas central to their mission, especially good ones. Create Portage County is full of good people from diverse backgrounds and skill sets, many of which are the young, vibrant, and highly skilled professionals who will set who will set roots, reinvest in our community, and make central Wisconsin home. It will take bold leadership and forward-thinking policymakers willing to take exciting risks in the name of progress for our city and county. It will take foresight and trust in the creative process and the next generation of business leaders and cultural creatives. It will take fortitude to analyze the data to confirm innovation centers like Create Portage County and the Idea Center have a profound impact on economic viability, livability, and evolvability. I didn't know that was a word. Evolvability of our cities and towns. And it will take plenty of hard work and sweat equity to transform the Fox Theater into the next phase of community space, entrepreneurial training centers, innovation hub, and the nucleus of arts and culture in central Wisconsin. But what it really takes is collaboration between civic, nonprofit, and business leaders, and this city council support to make the vision come to fruition. With your support here tonight, the greater community will know that a new Fox and its vision for a resilient Stevens Point and Portage County is a priority and investment in our future. Thank you. Thanks
Thank
for
you.
allowing me to do that.
Okay. Any other comments? David, here? Oh, you had some questions you had to answer.
Yeah. I can answer some of those questions that Tori had.
Yes, yeah. So I can answer sort of where we would be at as far as finances and paying for this. We do have about $250,000 in TIF district money that we could use. Right now, that money would actually be in TIF District 5, which would be the north side TIF. We could, TIF 6 obviously is underwater, but what we could do is transfer $250,000 from TIF 5 to TIF 6, and then use that $250,000 for this. That would be what we would have, available from a TIF perspective. As far as the appropriateness of using TIF, typically you're going to reference the TIF project plan. And in the TIF project plan for TIF 6, there is reference to facade improvements. So, I think you could make the case that this is part of a facade preservation or project. And then also there's reference to Main Street as well as creating jobs. So that's kind of how you would tie in, the TIF district money. Now, of course, if you're talking about the full request of $500,000, that extra $250,000 is a little bit more difficult just because we do have other things as well that we do want to do with our TIF districts, both the north side, someday doing a redevelopment of the north side, as well as some of, the things that we could do downtown, especially with the master plans for both of those areas. So it's kind of tough to utilize more TIF district money. I think the department heads have made it pretty clear that they don't want to see their capital budgets affected by this, and I agree with them that we shouldn't be taking away from our departments to do this. So then the only other option that we're really left with is if just hypothetically, if you wanted to entertain the full request or the full amount, you could collect property taxes for the other $250,000. And we could make that work through the capital process. If we did that in 1 year, the impact on the mill rate would be about 15 cents per thousand. So basically what that means would be if you have a $100,000 house, it would be an extra $15. If you have a $200,000 house, it would be, about an extra $30. You could also split that into 2 years. I know that Greg did mention that as far as 2020 and 2021. If you did it that way, it would be 7.5 cents for each year, roughly. Those are, rough figures on the mill rate, which again, a $100,000 house then would be an extra $7.50 for 2 years, and a $200,000 house would be an extra $15 a year over 2 years. So.
Okay, thank you. Alderman Chair.
Thank you, Chair. So for multiple reasons, it does seem like the first half of the request is easier to do, less complicated, easier to justify under the TID. What I want to get a little clear on is the relationship between the money to preserve the facade, the things that would be done now, and just so that we, kind of keep our eyes open about all contingencies. There was reference before to what the city would be on the hook for, in the event that, more demolition needs to be done, in the event that the project doesn't proceed. So, DJ's still here, isn't he? So as we're trying to clarify matters, I guess that's a question that I have, right? What's the relationship, I guess, between that punch list and anything else that we'd be responsible for if things didn't pan out?
Yeah, and I think that that's a good question and maybe a fair consideration, just sort of thinking out loud is, if you wanted to be sort of strategic as far as, so if you did go with the 250,000, if you wanted to be strategic as far as how you would release that, so that, basically, so let's say you agreed to 250,000, and we know that the remaining portion would be 150,000 to raise, maybe you release 100,000 at one point, and then maybe once it's, okay, a sure thing where we know we're not going to end up with raising the remaining portion, whatever that trigger is, then, you could phase it in that way. Because I agree, what we don't want to have happen is if we commit to 250,000 and we would give that, you have to think about all those possible contingencies and protecting the public resources. You don't want to end up in a point where you give 250,000 and then it doesn't work and we end up with another 150,000 to raise it. So just kind of thinking through that, I guess, similar to how when we do a development incentive,
right, often
we don't release it all right away.
The only other related point, though, is the question's been raised. Sorry, about the relationship between the building and Create, right? So part of why we'd be doing this would be to support Create, and part of why we'd be doing it, I think, is to avoid having that space empty, right? Is the value of preserving the facade because it's good to preserve the facade, right? So that kind of clouds the relationship a little bit between those two issues.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And first, I want to thank you for allowing everyone to speak. That's very generous, and not all chairs of all committees that I've been on have been as generous, so I want to thank you for that.
I was sleeping.
Were you? Yeah.
You missed a lot.
Yeah. I was thinking about a beer, but, but it is. I wanted to thank you. That's really important. It's important for everyone to be heard, and that was indeed very generous. And I'm going to say what we talked about in closed session, because it is now we've had all these conversations. And in closed session, we discussed the fact that if something doesn't happen, the city may get stuck with the bill anyway. And that's where the 250 grand came in, and I think that's probably high for the demo, but I'm assuming the demo, 250 for the demo, and then securing that facade so that it also doesn't, collapse into the sidewalk. So, and there was a level of support for that, because we're in this whether we like it or not. So I think the real question is, and I believe the woman had said that, do we support this? And I, for one, support it. I think it is, and maybe I've had the luxury of attending a lot of meetings related to this. Not everybody has. I think the folks here have helped highlight some of what we've talked about in those meetings. Again, with Village of Plover folks, Portage County, many other people. one was a luncheon with business leaders. Everybody was very much in support of this. In fact, I think it was Dan Mahoney who said, let's get going, let's do this. And so I think it's there, but this is our baby. It's in our front yard. And I think it's important for us to say in spirit whether we support this, because that then can be used as leverage. All you funders out there, they want to hear that we support this. Our investment is going to be relatively minor, and I can support the 250, and I like using TIF incentive because we just gave a boatload of money as TIF incentives from businesses outside of this community, outside of this state. This is our own, this is our own group. And so it seems to be able to connect TIF incentives to people right in our own backyard seems to make sense. So funders, I support this. I think it makes sense. I've seen what CREATE can do. I've had the wonderful opportunity to get to know all of the people. They've helped me in my political career, helped me understand what it's like to better understand marginalized communities. I would have never had that opportunity without CREATE. It's helped me craft something for County Board that I'm hoping will be a wonderful diversity affairs committee plan. I have connected with so many people to understand how they've created businesses, how they have reinvigorated this community. We're not going to see jobs at the mill proliferate. We're going to see entrepreneurs building this community, and I am just so grateful for the younger generation who is thinking outside the box, because my generation still wants to be in the box, and that box isn't going to cut it. So that's my perspective. I like using TIF dollars. Again, we've thrown a lot of dollars at TIF incentives. I think the thing that would have made this a little bit better, and I think we're missing Michael here, is what this could look like in a developer's agreement, and whether it's $125,000 now to get the project going, and then $125,000, and maybe that can be something staff can work out with CREATE. So.
Yeah, and I think, certainly once we have the feedback as far as some of these points on what the council wants to do, then we can figure out how to put those, terms and conditions and set all those things up. Yeah.
Thank you. Sean?
This is the largest group I've seen for someone who wants something, as opposed to people who come and say how much they don't want something. Yeah. So this has been really nice. I don't think anyone here, I don't think most folks here would not really debate what CREATE Portage County is and what it's been able to also do. The real debate is about the $250,000, not wasting the taxpayers' money. I know for TIFs, I would be completely against going this out of any other money that we have. But for TIFs, I know that we've donated money to the old to like so many other places. Can't even talk now. We've been here so long. Brewery, the Kmart project, apartment complexes. TIF would be a great idea for this, because this would be helping to create more jobs, create more money, so that people could stay here, live here. And that's the Century Insurance motto: stay here, play here, work here. This would be something that would help with that as well. I would be in agreement as well to have like a development agreement as well, to show that if CREATE is able to raise their funds. I think with Greg, he's the main face of CREATE. He's the one that's been able to really create what CREATE really is now, and he's been able to get a lot of people behind him. I mean, we have given a lot of money to a lot of other TIF. To a lot of other TIF projects here. OSO, which hasn't really been able to do much. They haven't taken any money yet, but with every TIF agreement, it is also, the businesses have to have to reach certain benchmarks for us to release to release those funds. So I would be in support of this if we could get an adequate developer agreement.
Thank you. Jeremy?
I guess my first question is, throughout all the testimony this evening, we've heard community. Has your group went to Portage County? I know President Johnson had referred to some meetings with Plover County as far as this initial $250,000 or the potentially $400,000 investment for the facade, maintaining the facade and kind of fixing the things that need to be repaired.
I mean, we've been meeting with all the municipalities we can. So we met, just this past Friday with Plover, and are in the process of talking through what their process is to figure out what they can do to support the project. We are also in talks with the county as well, to try to figure out where there's opportunities to leverage resources there as well. The reason why we're starting with the city of Stevens Point is that this is in the downtown of Stevens Point, and I will say both of those municipalities are more likely to support the project. I mean, if you don't support the project, it's going to be difficult for us to get those other municipalities to.
Okay. I guess I am in support of the project. I was on the Common Council when the Sanders family back in 2013 handed it over to the city, and I was excited. I thought, I grew up in Stevens Point. I watch movies in there, so I do. I don't want to see it gone. I don't want to see that missing tooth downtown. But my fear is obviously, I have to answer to my constituents regarding financing, and I just want to, I guess I would support it as long as, there's others on board with us. I don't feel that we should have to fork out $250,000 on the first initial phase. I'd be, again, kind of, what you had referenced and Corey as far as the developers agreement and, that there's benchmarks that are made before we, move to the next step with funding. So, again, I'm interested in being a part of this. I'm just not sure, what that part is as far as monetary.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chair, may I ask a question?
Alderperson Johnson?
Thank you. I'm wondering if, I'm getting a sense that there is support for this, and I think what's lacking, typically we would have probably negotiated this, a developer's agreement, and would have come forward as a developer's agreement. These sort of things would be hammered out, either benchmarks or project completion or whatever. So, perhaps the motion could be something like supporting the Create Portage County and the New Fox project. And again, I get back to, if nothing happens, we're probably going to get stuck with the bill anyway. So up to that $250,000 and asking, again, usually we would be doing this, folks, we would be doing this in closed session and negotiating with the developer. So this is a little bit different for me.
Kyle would be.
Yeah.
Kyle and Michael.
Well, we're doing it all in public, folks, so you ask for it, you got it. And ask for staff then to work with Create, the executive director, and the Create board to bring back an appropriate developers agreement. And I'd be happy to make that a motion.
Sure. And I guess just so I'm clear as far as what the intentions of the finance committee are, just so that I make sure that what we bring back is responsive to what you're looking for. So obviously, their request is for $500,000. I think what I've heard in different ways is that, we're more comfortable with the $250,000 is sort of where we'd be at. So we'd be looking at $250,000, and then maybe would we say, like half on each phase, so like half for phase 1 and half for phase 2? Or
I think it would be towards how much money they raise.
Okay.
Yeah, well, they've already got pledged $1.2 million, so they have that. I've contributed. So it's not that I'm opposed to the other 250. I think that I would probably want to revisit that at a different time. And that would probably be more tied to fundraising and an actual plan, an implementation plan to go forward, construction docs and those sort of things. So I would not be opposed to revisiting the additional money, but I'm more concerned right now. We know that the $250,000 is on the line because if nothing is done, we will need to demolish at least the most structurally unsound portions of that. And then we also risk losing the facade if nothing happens, so.
Alderperson Shore.
Thanks, Chair. Is that another way of saying that for this 250,000, you're not uncomfortable that it being toward the beginning in the first phase and related to these costs?
I think there's going to have to be, and Mr. Schneider could probably reference it better than I think there's going to have to be some fairly quick movement to do something. And because of not only safety of people, but the structural integrity of the adjacent buildings, is that correct?
Yes, that's the primary concern at this point is each winter is taking its toll on this building. It's not aging gracefully.
It aged wonderfully for 100 years.
For 100 years.
Yeah.
It's not anymore internally. So,
right.
So that is the concern. So the problem I'm hearing right now is the uncertainty up there is costing time, and time is not on your side at this point.
Right.
At the October 18th deadline is not necessarily arbitrary. It's a date that I figured that if they can't do what they need to on this punch list, that gives the city enough time to procure contractors to raise the building. Because it's not a simple process, and at this stage in the year, it's difficult, and that's kind of where we're at. So anything that is done is going to have to be done soon, right, wrong, or indifferent.
Right.
You know, a lot of suggestions up there, maybe you can work it out where you do a portion up front. Maybe it's a matched donation to get to that punch list to get it through the winter, and then you reassess come spring. Obviously, that's up to you, but from a recommendation standpoint, not from the building inspection side, but from the development side, that's probably how I would recommend you looking at it, is have some sort of matching process if you're going to move forward with it. Because you're right in the fact that you do give the 250 and nothing does happen, now we're still on the hook come spring for another substantial amount of money. And at that point, you've wasted a lot of money, so.
And time. And that's why the funding would have to be tied to specifically to the demolishing of the most structurally unsound portions.
Yep.
And then saving the facade or that front portion.
Yeah, and the facade portion really wouldn't be affected by that demolition right now. You know, that facade would stay. There are roof issues with that portion that's holding the facade, but
it's possible to do this. So that's why I say the sense of urgency, and maybe because once again I'm privy to some of the things that are going on behind the scenes and know that of that sense of urgency. So that's why I would be willing to support the 250,000, and I think it really has to be in the form of a developer's agreement tied to the demolition. This does two things. It accomplishes making that facility safe, again, for not only for human beings, but those adjacent buildings, but then it also shows the community that we are a willing partner in this, And again, to those funders, the city of Stevens Point takes care of its own. We may provide a lot of TIF incentives for a lot of very good projects. I supported all of them. But we also take care of our own and the people right here.
Thank you.
I see Kyle Kearns out there, if I could please call him.
He's hiding.
Yes,
Since
may assist.
Since lots of this will probably be falling on you. Have you been able to hear what's been going on in the other room, or?
I have.
Okay.
I've been there the whole time, yes.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
How long do you think it would take you to get some kind of a development agreement in regard to the $250,000?
I think we could probably get something together working closely with Corey by next month, I would think.
Yeah, I would think so.
Because that would be kind of cutting it kind of close with the October 18th.
Well, even if we hit, as Director or Interim Director Schneider said, you hit that deadline, you still have to issue an RFP.
Right.
Look for a competent company who can come in and do that sort of deconstruction and demolition in that tight space. Get landfill bids. I can help you with that. So, shameless plug for landfills, but, so there would still be a process that would have to happen, so.
Okay,
no. I know that's almost 10. I'd like to, make a motion.
Can I say something yet?
Yeah.
You're the chair, go ahead.
Sure,
Just, okay, all right. I guess create is a great idea. I'm okay with doing the project. I think it's a money pit. I think you're gonna outgrow it. From what I've been hearing, you're gonna outgrow it, and then you're gonna be back for some more money because you're gonna move somewhere else. I'd be in favor as long as it does not raise any taxes to my constituents. Now, whether that be 150 now and 150, or 125 now and 125 later, I think that's a great idea. I don't think we should throw out the 250 right off the bat, because they have money, they can use that 125 for the demolition that they need to do immediately. That's all I gotta say. What do you say? Oh, Jeremy?
Well, I just have, I guess, a clarification question from President Johnson regarding her thoughts. You had said that utilizing the 250,000 for the phase one portion. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. And I guess that's my concern, is I would like to see some more skin in the game. You know, other entities other than us. You know, it was brought to us between 200, 400,000 for the phase one. I mean, if we're putting 250,000 in, I mean, we got a lot of skin in the game, and there's really not many other entities that really have anything to lose. So I guess I would be more comfortable with, 125 on the first phase, we're gonna have to, I mean, per Greg, there's a lot of people that have committed, let's step up to the plate, let's do this as a community. I mean, I'm willing to, put my vote in to be part of it, but again, I'd like a little more skin in the game from other entities.
Sure.
Alderperson Sure.
Thanks. Those similar kinds of concerns are what make me feel similar to Alder Johnson about any more money beyond 250. Maybe some of the people who came to speak tonight, seeing the discussion, have a different sense of, what 250,000, what 500,000 represent, as our budgetary choices and how hard pressed we are. And so, I hope that one of the things that you take away is that, maybe 250,000 looks better to you as the city stepping up, knowing that you did come looking for 500,000. But I think because of the urgency with some of the structural issues, that, that's why I would be comfortable with putting all of the money towards phase one. I mean, the value proposition here is clear. The impact on economic development is clear. Thanks again to everybody for kind of really telling us that story and giving us more details about it. And gee, if there's something that matters more than keeping young people living in Stevens Point, I don't know what it is. And so that's certainly, I mean, it's for me, it's front of mind in a lot of the decisions that we make, not just this one. But the connection here is so close and clear that this does look like a really good investment in our future. But the motion you've put is for it to be towards phase one and the immediate costs.
Yeah, my motion would be, and I guess I'll make it, is to use up to $250,000 of TIF money and to accomplish phase one, which would be the demolition and saving of the facade, and ask staff to then put together a developer's agreement for Finance Committee to consider next month, and work, of course, with CREATE, the executive director and their board.
Is there a second?
I second.
Okay.
Can I?
Sure, yeah, discussion.
I was hoping I didn't have to vote no on this tonight. Is the attorney outside?
Maybe he's sleeping too.
If this gets voted down, this motion, where's it at? I would much rather have this as a discussion on council, and I guess that's where I'm going with this is, I just don't want it to die here. I'd like to discuss it as a body. This motion, there's a motion to basically grant or provide up to $250,000 for phase one. If that motion fails at this level, I mean, basically, it dies right there.
No, this is the Finance Committee. It's advisory to the council.
So this would still be a discussion item.
And it
Well, it could be pulled from the minutes, but I mean, it wouldn't be a separate discussion item.
I would be quite surprised if there were not a discussion of it at council, no matter the outcome here tonight.
Well, and I guess.
Okay, I wanted to make sure that opportunity was there.
Sure. Well, and I guess the other thing, I mean, so if you make one motion and it fails, typically you can make another motion. So for instance, I mean, I get the feeling you might be more comfortable with
But I'm just
125 and
sensing that we're kind of have a little bit of different vision, and I just
because I mean, if I'm getting the feeling that you're maybe more comfortable with the 125, if the 250 all in phase one would fail, I think you could make a motion on.
And I would assume that
on kind of what.
You can amend my motion too if I'm willing to accept it.
And now we just flip the order.
And I understand, Alder Solinsky, where you're coming from.
Yes.
And I'm hoping that that'll come out in a developer's agreement, which Finance Committee would have to consider again. I think Corey is getting the sense of what we want. I'm directing him and the interim community development director and probably assistant director or to take care of this and bring us a document. And that's what's missing here is that document. And I think that's all of our discomfort. When we make these kind of decisions, we have the developer's agreement in front of us, so.
Okay.
All set?
All your questions answered? If
We go vote?
for the 250 right up front, And no,
For phase one.
to phase one.
For phase one, right?
Right.
It might be paid out, which is what the developer's agreement would be about.
Right.
Is it might not be paid out in a lump sum because it will relate to the costs of the project.
Right.
Oh, so it's not,
Yeah.
okay.
But it is for phase one in terms of the work that needs to be done
Precisely.
immediately.
But in that motion, and this money would come from
TIF.
Yeah.
the TIF district,
Yeah, I agree on
8 or 10 or whatever.
not
it is.
messing with the capital budget, so I agree with that, so.
Okay. Everybody know the motion?
Yeah.
Okay, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
All not in favor of the motion, say
No.
aye. No. 3 ayes and 2 noes.
Yep.
Motion carries. It'll be on the council agenda next Monday.
Well, and
Good
then
with that.
back to Finance Committee next month with a developers agreement, so.
But they might have that next week.
So,
Well, maybe, if they scurry.
We got time.
They could start
Okay,
right
we're
now.
finally up to, let's go back to number 1. No.
Only
a break.
Item 3, funding for the
can we please take a
completion
break?
of the...
stand for a moment.
Please.
I guess let's go and recess for a little bit. We're back in session.
Number 3.
We'll take item 3, funding for the completion of the housing affordability analysis and new housing fee reports. Corey, you could bring us up to speed on this?
sure, so this was a request from the Community Development Department. This is actually a new statutory requirement imposed by the state that we complete these 2 reports, and the Community Development Department is requesting $2,000 in order to do so, and the funding would come from contingency.
Okay, thank you. Any questions? Any motions?
I'll move to approve the funding for the completion of housing affordability analysis and new housing fee reports.
A second.
Seconded by Morrow. Any questions? See none, we'll call for the question. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion's carried. Oh, moving right along, number 4, extension
Please.
of,
Sorry. Go on. I'm sorry. Go on.
you waving to somebody out there?
No, sorry. Go on.
Extension of options to purchase land in East Park Commerce Center. Back to you, Corey.
Yes, so these are the options to purchase that we have for East Park Commerce Center. It would be renewing the options at the same price. However, there are some of them that, do have a renegotiation after 3 years. So a 3-year extension and then a renegotiation. And basically, it doesn't really cost us anything to have these options. It just gives us some site control in that if we want to do something, or if we have a potential development, it allows us to purchase those properties at a set price, and basically guarantees us that we're going to be able to buy them. So I know Bill Schofield is here as well. I believe he's representing the property owners. If anyone has any questions.
Any questions?
Or, okay.
Oh,
I just want to clarify something, if that's okay. You'll notice in the finance memo that was provided by the Community Development Department, the last bullet on page 2 of 5 indicates that MS&S Enterprises, we were still in the negotiation. In working with the property owner's representative, Mr. Schofield, who's here tonight, MS&S Enterprises, which encompasses about 200 acres of the East Park Commerce Center, is willing to extend the options at a 1-year deal at the same price. So that is the only one that is not reflective of what's actually occurring, and that's because that deal and
So
the
1 year,
language-
you said?
1 year at the same price, correct.
sure.
So we have already drafted also, working with the city attorney, the option amendments, and those will likely be before council next week.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. Do I hear any motions out there? What are your,
I'll move to extend the options to purchase land in East Park Commerce Center as I guess stated here in the memo, with a 1-year extension agreed upon with the MS&S Enterprises
okay,
parcel.
and I'll second that motion. Any questions for Mrs. Schofield? No? This is good? We'll call for the question. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion is carried. Item 5, purchase of land in East Park Common Center, parcel ID 2308, 01, 1200, 02, and 2308, 01, 1300, 01. Corey, what are those?
Okay, so these would be 2 parcels. Basically, it would be the parcel immediately to the east of Service Cold Storage currently, and then the parcel immediately to the east of Land's End. Service Cold Storage has indicated that they would like to secure the property for future expansion, and we know that they continue to expand, which is definitely a good thing. So basically, it's a simultaneous purchase where basically if we buy one, we have to take both. And what we would do then is Service Cold Storage would pay for the portion that they need for their future plans, and then we would retain the remaining portion. And the purchase would be out of TIF funds that are available in TIF 9, and with the basically what we would get in return from cold storage, we wouldn't have to borrow any money. We would be able to cover it all with our sale to them and then also the available TIF funds.
Okay, everybody understand that?
Yep. It's exactly what we talked about at Plan Commission.
Motion,
Can I make just one
Here's
comment?
Kyle.
I do want to note that in regards to the developers agreement that's in place with Lineage, we are furthering that conversation as it may require an amendment to the developers agreement because it did not previously include this land and this new parcel.
Okay.
So that may come before this body in October or November for review and approval.
Thank you. I'm looking for a motion to approve the purchase.
Motion to approve the purchase of land in East Park Commerce Center with the identified parcels, which I will not enumerate.
A second.
Seconded by
Sure.
old person. Well, or Shore?
Sure.
It's your discretion.
But
I think they
by
will.
Shore, I know he's closer.
I had my hand up before he did.
Any more questions, discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion's carried. Item 6, a sale of land located within East Park Commerce Center, a portion of parcel, and those bunch of numbers there to Lineage SC Wisconsin LLC.
Yes, so, and this would be the sale that I referenced previously of the 13.1 acres, which would basically be the portion immediately to the east of their current facility.
Okay, I'll make a motion to sell the property.
Second.
Seconded by Alderperson Johnson. Any discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, motion is carried. Item 7, request from Scott Rashka to harvest hay from city-owned property located north of Highway 10 east of Badger Avenue, the former Bickford property. And there's a listed parcel number there. In your memo, it showed pretty much everything what he's going to do there, so pretty self-explanatory.
Yep, he would pay us $30 an acre for being able to harvest the hay.
He's the same guy who did it last year?
Yes. The only snag that occurred last year was it ended up being too wet for him to harvest that last year, but yeah, he is the same guy that we had an agreement with last year as well.
Well, but if he didn't harvest, he didn't pay us, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, that's correct.
Being that basically we have no plans to develop this in the next year, some revenue off of it, so I will approve the request from Scott Roshka to harvest hay from city-owned property located north of Highway 10 and east of Badger Avenue, former Bickford property.
Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Alderperson Moore. Discussion? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion's carried. Oh, here's the big one of the night. Request to hire a new police officer with the start date of November, or wait a minute, and close to October 1st.
Yes, so this is a request from the police department. As we know, they've requested 2 additional officers in the 2020 budget. What they're requesting is to hire one with a start date of around October 1st, because it does take about 3 months for that officer to get trained in. So the thought would be to get the process started a little bit earlier than usual for a new budgeted position, really in order so that you can hit the ground running and that you have a new officer trained in, so that I believe somebody else can step up into the drug officer role. And then the only other thing that I would say is, I know the police chief does have this in his 2019 budget, as far as just some savings from some other things. I would note it really does commit us to, in 2020, funding at least one additional officer. So I think that should be, understood that, obviously, if we do this, we're not intending to lay somebody off January 1st.
That'd be weird.
It would. That's probably not the best way to do things. And I would say, typically, we wouldn't make this kind of a commitment this far in advance of the budget process. However, I think that some of the planning that we've done for the 2020 budget has helped put us in a position where we're able to make a commitment like this. And then also just, looking at the initial numbers for the 2020 budget, I would say for this year, I'm comfortable doing it, but I want to kind of disclose that I don't think that every year we would necessarily be able to make a commitment this early. So, I support doing this time, but I just want people to understand that in future years, we may need to get a little bit further into the budget process to make a commitment like this, just based on how the budget's looking.
Okay, thank you. Any questions?
Well, I would just like to make, number one, a comment. I think we had been pretty straightforward last year that new positions were what we were going to do for 2020. And I think we were pretty clear that the PD was one of those priorities. And I am fully in support of having that additional training time, because that's exactly what I try to do when I'm hiring staff. So I would make a motion to approve the request to hire a new police officer with a start date on or close to October 1.
I'll second.
Seconded by Alderman Slawinski. Questions, comments? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion's carried. Last item on the agenda is approval of the claims paid. I know everybody went through them. Yep. You find out anything interesting, or?
Just sitting here a few feet from Willett, and knowing that it's, getting towards completion, is that pretty much coming right on what was expected in terms of cost, or how is that?
So, and I will defer to our Parks Director, Director Kramer.
I just wanted to make him feel better for staying this late.
Right now, we're about 40,000 or so under budget, so that's where we anticipate to end up, right in that vicinity.
Thanks.
So that was contingency?
What's that?
Was that contingency money that's left, or?
No, it was, Corey, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but that was part of the $200,000 Willett fund that went towards that 1.75. Correct?
And I guess, so, and I think I know what Alder Phillips is asking, that a lot of times we'll bid out a project and we'll add like a 15% contingency. I guess I'd have to look at how we did that, and it's hard because obviously you weren't here when the whole thing got, started, so.
Correct.
But we can get back to you
Okay.
on that as far as
Yeah, I'll talk to you.
contingency or not.
I have one other question for, I noticed in here, first choice tree care, your elm injections for almost $6,000. Elm tree, what do we do? Do we treat an elm tree for a couple of years, then we cut it down, or what do we do?
No, they selectively treat, there's a full listing of the elm trees that we go through, and every year there's a different set that gets treated. So those trees are continually treated to keep them alive
And you
ultimately.
survive?
Yep.
Okay.
So, correct.
Thank you. Motions? Was there a motion?
No, there wasn't.
I
Go ahead.
I move approval of the claims paid.
Second.
Seconded by Morrow. All in favor of that motion, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion is carried. We're adjourned.
Videos of these meetings are available for viewing on the city's website, stevenspoint.com/videos.